Good morning. Very good morning to all of you. Welcome back to our second day of this important event. On this day, we have going to have a very interesting deliberation, and today also we have very interesting speakers lined up for the day. It's my great honor to inform you all that we have amidst us Dr. PJ Dilip Kumar. Sir, on behalf of IWST, we heartily welcome to you, sir. We heartily welcome you. We also have our guest of honor who was supposed to join us yesterday due to unavoidable circumstances. He could not, and he's very much here with us. Mr. Bivash Ranjan, Additional Director General of Forest, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. Sir, your noble presence on this important occasion has brought a great impetus to all of us, sir. Thank you very much. And I take this opportunity on behalf of all of us to express my sincere gratitude with a warm welcome for accepting to be with us on this splendid occasion. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. It's my proud privilege and pleasure to also just give a brief about our Dr. Dilip Kumar, sir. Dr. PJ Dilip Kumar belongs to 1974 batch of Karnataka cadre and served as Director General of Forests and Special Secretary of MOF and CC. Before joining Government of India, he served at various capacities in Karnataka. More than officer, he is acclaimed as a scholar too. He has PhD in Forest Economics from the University of North Wales, Bangor, with MSc Chemistry from IIT Bombay, PG Diploma in Ecology and Environment, MA in Economics and Development, and numerous other postgraduate degrees. Presently, he is serving as Senior Fellow at Institute of Socio-Economic Change and as Adjunct Professor in Bangalore University. Dr. Dilip Kumar has several publications in International Journal of Repute. Sir, I now invite you for your initial remarks, sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Singh sir. Just to clarify, of course, I am not in the ISEC right now. That was in 2013 for 2 years. I was at the Institute of Social and Economic Change in Bangalore. I published a couple of monographs also. One was on Forest Conservation Act, and the other was on community forestry and joint forest management. So thank you very much for your kind remarks. It was a very pleasant surprise to me that you have this seminar going on. So I just happened to drop in on you yesterday, and you were kind enough to invite me to make a few remarks. Of course, I don't have a prepared presentation, so I'll spare you that. But Teak, of course, has been always very central in the Indian forest scenario. Just a few remarks I'd like to make in relation to what role ICFRE and ICFRE institutes can make. One, of course, is the biggest role of ICFRE is in information. And we know that in the 1990s, there were a lot of teak plantation projects. For some reason, they all failed. Maybe one reason was lack of information about the actual growth patterns of teak. My own personal suspicion is that they confuse the yield tables. You know, our yield tables give you yield per hectare. I think they confused it as yield per tree. So they used to tell us that one tree will give so many cubic meters in 15 years and so on. So we have to look at this information very carefully, and I think we have to impart to the market players, how do you look at the information that ICFRE has produced over all the decades and maybe even centuries, you can say. So one role of ICFRE is definitely in providing information. And now with the internet and web and all that, so easy to put out information. What does the user want? He wants to know how tea can be planted and grown, what he can expect as returns, what is the silvicultural measures that he should take, then what is the price that he can get in the market, how should he sell it, and so on and so forth. So we come to the realm of utilization. That, of course, is IWSC's main role. And we have, you can't expect these private practitioners to wait for 100 years, like we used to say. So nowadays, if you go to the market, you will find teak poles being used as timber. So IWST has a great role in imparting to the market the best methods of using this immature timber, what we call immature. Now, replacements for teak. As we know, Acacia auriculaeformis for some reason became a very hot replacement for teak. It's also got very good properties. It's not only to cheat the people. Acacia also has a very good timber quality. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Mr. Singh's own room has some furniture made of acacia, if I'm not mistaken. So for the market, for the middle class consumer, for the average person who cannot afford teak, what are the alternatives and how do you improve them? And once again, how do you grow them and how do you utilize them? Now, in growing teak, agroforestry is going to be one of the biggest methods. I'll come to the natural forest a little later. So what people want to know is how they can get good planting stock. Now, if you go to the average teak nursery, you will find in a bed out of say 1,000 or 1,500 plantlets, you will find that a number of them are very small and not good for planting. So can you use those inferior seedlings or plants, as you can call them? How do you cull? How do you improve the planting stock? Then a lot of research went into improving the genetic quality of teak. Karnataka Forest Department alone had a number of teak seed orchards and so on. Has anything come out of that? Are those seeds really better? And so on and so forth. Tree improvement. That's another very big role which ICFRE should and can play. Then market information. When you want to go to buy teak, is there some place where you can find out where it's available? What are the qualities? What are the grades? What are the prices? And so on and so forth. Is there a teak exchange or a timber exchange on the web? These are some of the things which really need to be organized. Now, in the course of my forest economics work, try to do some financial and economic analysis of teak plantations. I found that there are a lot of considerations in that. So it's not an easy job to do financial analysis. So a lot more work needs to be done on the financial returns to teak and so on, the models, the plantation models, the silvicultural treatments and so on and so forth. Now, teak in forests. As far as I know, forest departments have a dilemma now because many of the old teak plantations have become overgrown and a lot of other species have come in. Now, do you keep these as mixed crops or are you going to follow the old silvicultural models where you have very heavy thinning? One of the problems in our high rainfall Western Ghats forests is that teak becomes leafless in this season. And just before the rains, you have almost a bare teak crop, which means that the first pre-monsoon showers come, there's an enormous amount of soil erosion. And you can see in some places the whole root stock has been exposed, the base of the tree has been exposed. So teak is not a very good species in very high rainfall areas, especially in the Western Ghats. So are you really going to push teak as monoculture? Are you going to convert mixed miscellaneous forests into teak? If you do that, what happens to the ecosystem? What happens to the ecology, the soil and so on? Now, in the context of climate change, the forests are getting expected to get drier and drier. So teak is not a very good, it's not very good to convert mixed miscellaneous forests into teak because the chances are that it may become more desiccated, fires may become more frequent and so on. So miscellaneous forests, how do you balance growth of teak with the preservation of miscellaneous forests? Miscellaneous forests are also very important for biodiversity, soil conservation and so on, and also for local people. So one of the complaints about the forest department is that it has converted all miscellaneous mixed forests into monoculture, either of teak or of eucalyptus and so on. So for the local people, these monocultures, they say, is not really helpful. In times of drought, especially, there is no food in the forest. There is no fodder for the animals and so on and so forth. A lot of non-timber forest products, like fruit and medicinal plants and fibers, process, which they used to find in the forest, they don't find anymore. So generally, these are the ecological and livelihood considerations which we need to take into account when we discuss the silviculture of teak. And I hope this conference will deliberate on some of these aspects, and I hope to get a lot of information from you. So with these few remarks, wishing you all the best, I will sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your initial remarks, sir. May I now request Mr. Bhuvash Ranjan, Additional Director General of Forests, for his remarks and perspectives. So over to you, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
good morning, all of you. I must congratulate Mr. MP, Dr. MP Singh, Director of the IWST, for keeping the topic augmenting of teak in the agroforestry areas. It is the need of the hour. The forestry species gradually needs to be relooked in the agroforestry areas, farmers areas, because the farmers area can only sustain and provide the timbers to locals, to the people. It will be surprised, and it is very interesting to know that yesterday, when we are celebrating World Forest Day, International Forest Day, Minister has launched 4 booklets regarding augmenting the 4 commercial species which is normally endemic to the forest, is being brought to the agriculture fields or commercial productions like red sandalwoods, agarwood, sandalwood, rosewood. Techniques, the practices, the marketing, all things has been listed there. When we see the present scenario of the wood productions in the country, imports in the country, exports of the timber from the country, the sustainability of the woods and timbers, there are many challenges what we face. There is a debate going on in the government of India that how agroforestry can be sent, not brought, can be sent to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It's a new development. Presently, it is with the Ministry of Agriculture. They have pronounced the agroforestry policy also. But since pronouncement of the policy, nothing more could be seen on the field. Keeping in view of all the things, it has been almost decided that how this agroforestry can be dealt by the ministry. My 4 points to flag here for this issue. First, the trade potential domestically and internationally. Does our EXIM policy promotes the logs and timbers to be exported, or can we come at a closer niche? Number 1. Number 2, can we fulfill the target of the domestic consumptions of the timber? Presently, what we see that 1.62 billion CMT timber is available from the tree outside forest. Can 1.62 billion CMT be 3 billion CMT? How this can be? This is a very challenging task. When we saw the abstract of the IFSR 2021, what we could see, number of teak saplings planted in the country. The teak stands standing in the country. It looks very less number. The productivity of the timber is hardly 3% of the teak categories in the domestic market. Number 2, when we see the export potential, the only forest in the country like UP forest has been certified by the NFCC. And the products from the timber of UP qualifies for the export, why can't the other states' timber, other states' forest be certified? Can IWST take a lead on this? Recently, a meeting was held in Campa. We promoted a proposal wherein the capacity building of IWST as well as the state government has been sanctioned for certification promotion procedures. If the timber outside forest is certified, definitely the total income of the farmers will go up. And we have the live example of state of UP. All the 41 territorial divisions of the Uttar Pradesh has been certified. What certification means here? In a layman's language, the certifiers looks the quality of the seeds, source of the seeds, quality of the nurseries, sites of the nurseries, locations of the nurseries, quality of the saplings, sapling transportation mechanism, plantation sites, mature plantation sites, harvesting sites, and timber depot. Hardly 10 to 12 criteria they have fixed. Every forest department in the country does the same things. But we are not certified. Reason being that the value of the timber doesn't get as high as the UP timber gets. So my view is how to improve the chain of custody of the existing timbers, number one. Number two, how can we enhance the productivity of the teak timber in the country? Right now, when we see the production capacity of the timber in the country, the proportions of the teak timber is 3% of the timber production. If I am right, I may be corrected. क्या 3% से 5% हम टिक टिम्बर की प्रोडक्टिविटी कर सकते हैं? My first issue. Number two, तस्नीम सर बैठे हुए हैं, सर का एक्सपर्टीज है टिक में. गुड मॉर्निंग सर. मेरा ये मत है कि सेंट्रल यूपी में, सेंट्रल इंडिया में, एडजॉइनिंग टेरिटरीज में हम कुछ स्पीसीज को आइडेंटिफाई करके उसे फैसिलिटेट करें जितना अधिक कर सकते हैं. अगर हम 1.62 बिलियन से 3 बिलियन मेट्रिक टन टिक का प्रोडक्शन एनुअल करेंगे तो नेचुरली इसका इम्पैक्ट हमारे टिम्बर इंपोर्ट पे पड़ेगा. और टिम्बर इंपोर्ट में एनुअल एक्सपेंडिचर हमारा लगभग 44 से 45 हजार करोड़ होता है. और मैक्सिमम इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट हम क्या करते हैं? यू विल बी सरप्राइज्ड. देयर आर फ्यू इंडियन कंपनीज जिसमें से मैं यूपी में मैं जानता हूं, जहां मैं 2-3 बार जा चुका हूं. वन इज अकबर फर्नीचर and they export only benches to the Europe. साल का बेंच बना के वो बेचते हैं और वो एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं. एक भी इंटरनल डोमेस्टिक मार्केट में उसका कोई कंजम्पशन नहीं है. वो केवल साल टिम्बर पर बेचते हैं. दूसरा इंडस्ट्री है उसी के पास में, सीएल गुप्ता एंड कंपनी एक्सपोर्ट है. वो केवल मैंगो ट्रीज के प्रोडक्ट्स को एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं. केवल मैंगो ट्रीज के प्रोडक्ट्स को एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं. हाई क्वालिटी टिम्बर होती है. तीसरा जो सबसे बड़ा हैंडीक्राफ्ट का एक्सपोर्ट मार्केट है वो जोधपुर का है. वहां से बबूल और शीशम के प्रोडक्ट्स एक्सपोर्ट होते थे. जब से शीशम साइट्रस में आ गया तब से शीशम के प्रोडक्ट का एक्सपोर्ट होना बंद हो गया. क्या हम इंडिया जैसे हब है हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स का, फर्नीचर्स का, हम इसको और बड़ा करने में फैसिलिटेट कर सकते हैं। पिछले वर्षों से, can say in decades, the tree outside forest is almost varying between 2.5% to 3% of the total geographical area of the country. How this can be enhanced? It can be enhanced very easily. The thing is that when the farmers will start getting remunerative price within the time frame, this can be done only through after proper certifications. If their market is there, they will be easily growing all the timbers. हरियाणा आज की डेट में यमुनानगर काफी बड़ा मार्केट हो गया है केवल यूकेलिप्टस के प्रोडक्ट्स को बनाने के रेफरेंस। क्या बहुत सारा इस तरह का हम मार्केट को लिंक नहीं कर सकते? तो IWST कैन प्ले अ बिग रोल इन दिस। पहला, certification of the forest area as well as chain of custody outside the forest area. This institute can be an accredited institute. We can certify the accreditors or certifiers for future course of action. A. Number two, identify the species which has a domestic market as well as the international market. Teak is one of the species. It is being called as a king of the species, king of timber. This species can very well take a place of sesame. Sesame now is on a citrus. We tried to get it off from the citrus, but we have not been successful. Hopefully, till the next COP, we may be able to get some good news. Thirdly, how CAMPA fund can be roped in for the quality productions of these saplings for agroforestry areas. We came across a number of proposals from the states, the CAMPA meeting, where there is no proposal for the sapling raising, quality sapling raising. It is very, very important. When we see the working plan code also states there is nowhere mentioned in the working plan code how best sapling raising can be possible. There is only one line has been written in the code, nursery की स्थापना कर दी जाए. That's all. Whether it is a quality sapling or a normal sapling. And fourth, how the state forest corporations can be roped in. Again, I would like to point it out here that the UP State Forest Corporation is the nodal agency in the state of Uttar Pradesh, who is mandated to log the trees, market the trees, pay the royalty to the states. The cost of the certification is borne by the UP Forest Corporation. Similarly, the other forest corporations in the country can be roped in for the certifications of the quality forest or production forestry. But IWST must develop the capabilities to accredit themselves and the other certifiers as per the international norms being followed in FSC. And last one, can we make some patent for the process? It is not necessary that the process which is adopted by FSC is a benchmark. It is a simple guidelines. You can also develop your own benchmark so that the timber coming out from the forest can be said it is coming from the sustainable forest. And we are importing the timber from the critical endangered areas where the protection of the forest, governance from the forest is not at par. That is why we cannot export the products made from the imported timber. Almost 60% of timber is coming from the ill-governed forestry-related countries. So my best wishes to IWST for making this institute as an alma mater for certifications in the country, which can guide the whole nation for international and national trade as well. Roping the state forest corporations for the certifications, promoting the trade of the tree outside forest as much as possible so that it can expand the agroforestry needs of the people. And thank you, Madan, for inviting me for such an occasion. There are many more species which can be brought into the agroforestry areas. ICFRE has developed the clonal propagation technique for 67 agroforestry species in the country. But till date, only 6 species has been sent to the states. Now it is the duty of the states to take the technique, to adopt the technologies, to spread the good quality saplings, to enhance the productivity, and to make the nation Atmanirbhar. Thank you. Thanks a lot to everyone.
Thank you, Vivas. It is really great guiding remarks from you. We will certainly come to the expectation of the ministry and work in the field of certification. We have given the proposal also to the ministry that we should have our own certification scheme which narrates our system of having the sanctioning of the working plan and regulating the felling from the forest. So on behalf of the central government, IWST will be ready to take up this kind of work which you are suggesting. And also for the TOF also, we have suggested that there should be a separate standard, agri-wood standard, which gives understanding that in India, we are getting wood from the agriculture field, from the farmers field, not from the forest, because there are lots of confusion. When we say that timber, then all other people, they think that timber is coming from the forest. But in India, it is coming from the TOA, but that needs to be, this story needs to be told to the world. So that is why we have suggested two kinds of certification. And coming to the topic of augmenting teak from teak timber from India, because that is the biggest import is happening in the teak only. So, and we have good teak forest in the central India, and even that is why we requested Tasneem Mahotsav to guide us. And I would request that if ministry can agree to our proposal to have a task force which takes care of the augmenting teak timber in India, so that the task force can go and discuss with all the states governments what is the practices, and then come up with the recommendation, and then that can be a policy guidelines from the ministry so that the states are guided accordingly. Otherwise, in last 30 years, there has been so much of emphasis, and everybody has taken a different route. So they have even the plantation working circle also has been are being tried to be converted into the natural forest or the normal forest with no thinning, and so many issues are there, especially in the teak plantation and the teak forest. So I think we need to look into the potential which India has got, because teak is indigenous to India, and we are importing teak from other country. And certainly it has lots of scope in the TOF, in the agroforestry, because clonal plantation of the teak can be taken up on a large scale, which can augment teak from the TOF on a shorter rotation. That is the two area we are thinking. So we propose that there should be a task force constituted by the ministry on this topic. After the deliberation, we are having presentation from the states, so we will include all these recommendations from the states and the status from the state also. And we would further, we intend that we should work further to come to any action plan so that it is implemented at the ground in all the states. So that is my request to you.
Thank you, Madan. I assure you that the recommendations of this whole today's webinar, I will try to get it implemented as early as possible. I can assure you this.
Okay, thank you. So I request Tasneem Ahmed Sahab to say interact with Vivas Ranjan and OP Singh. He also there.
It is a matter of great pleasure for me. आवाज आ रही है?
आ रही है सर, आ रही है सर.
रंजन साहब को देख करके मुझे बड़ी खुशी हुई. इनको कोविड हो गया था, मैं काफी परेशान था, मैंने कांटेक्ट करने की भी कोशिश की, लेकिन मेरी दुआएं इनके साथ थी. बहुत अच्छा लगा आपको देख करके, दिल खुश हो गया. कल भी इंतजार कर रहा था मैं, कल मुलाकात नहीं हो पाई, चलो आज हो गई. अच्छा, जहां तक इशू का सवाल है, तो उसमें प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाने की बात कही आपने. हमारे पास जो फॉरेस्ट है वो तो लिमिटेड है. उनको आज, जैसे कि आज मेरा अपना ख्याल ये है कि मोस्ट ऑफ द फॉरेस्ट जो है वो करंट एनुअल इंक्रीमेंट उनका एवरेज निकाला जाए तो हार्डली हाफ से 1 किलोमीटर पर हेक्टर पर ईयर है. इसको कनोपी मैनिपुलेशन से, केवल प्रॉपर मैनेजमेंट से इसको कम से कम 10 टाइम्स बढ़ाया जा सकता है, ऐसा मेरा मानना है. कम से कम 5 क्यूबिक मीटर्स पर हेक्टर पर ईयर किया जा सकता है. मगर उसके लिए हमको उसको बराबर एफिशिएंटली मैनेज करना पड़ेगा. बात समय कम है, इसलिए अभी डिटेल बात नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन मेरा एक आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है रंजन साहब कि आप रुकिए. आखिर में मैं कुछ डेटा तो नहीं, मेरे खुद के कलेक्ट किए हुए कुछ डेटा के आधार पे हमने कुछ कर्ज बनाए हैं, कुछ कंक्लूजन्स ड्रॉ किए हैं. आई वुड लाइक टू शेयर, आई वुड लाइक यू टू सी इट एंड कमेंट अपॉन इट.
सर बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल करेंगे सर.
बिल्कुल रुकिएगा, वो जब हमारे MP सिंह साहब हुकुम करेंगे उसके बाद से मैं उसको प्रेजेंट करूंगा.
सर नहीं, ठीक है सर, मैं उनको इन्फॉर्म कर दूंगा जब आपका प्रेजेंटेशन होगा तो, क्योंकि ये तो बिजी रहते हैं. ये चेयर पे अगर मिल जाएंगे तो जरूर हम लोग को ज्वाइन करेंगे, क्योंकि ये
और हमने उसको ईमेल भी कर दिया मनोहर साहब.
ठीक सर. ओके, so now
thank you very much, sir, for your kind remarks and perspective, paving the right beginning for the day. We now move on to technical session. There has been a slight modification in the program with reference to list of speakers due to some unavoidable circumstances. It's my pleasure now to invite the first speaker of the day, Dr. Rekha Warrior, a senior scientist from Institute of Forest Genetics, Tree Breeding, Coimbatore, to share her thoughts and perspectives on augmenting teakwood. Over to you, Rekha, madam.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible, Dr. Rekha.
And is the screen visible?
Screen is also visible, Dr. Rekha.
Okay. So thank you very much, and a very good morning to the August gathering here. There have been a lot of discussions by the eminent personalities today morning on small agroforestry, how tea can be incorporated into agroforestry. Today, I will be talking on smallholder teak agroforestry plantations, its scope and prospects in India. This is a venture which has been taken by the Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, and different institutes under the ICFRE have come together to carry out this work. A brief recap on what has been discussed yesterday and today on the challenges to sustainable wood production. The first one is the National Forest Policy, which has now locked the natural forest for timber production, and the priority has been conservation. The competition between food and wood, where priority is given for food rather than wood. The low wood production per unit area per time. Shortage of quality planting material. Lack of appropriate post-harvest and value addition technologies, and the poor market linkages for the wood produce. All this has been discussed yesterday as well as today morning by the eminent speakers. A look at the wood imports since 1990s. As far as India is concerned, its appetite for teak has been very voracious. If you look at the data, in 1980s, India imported teak from 11 countries. In 2010, it was from 51 countries. And yesterday, Dr. Sandeep from TeakNet was mentioning as to how in 2020, India imports teak from 72 countries. Yesterday and today, Dr. MP Singh, the director IWST, as well as Ranjan sir were mentioning about the huge imports of teak that has happened to the country, especially wood and wood products, of which 50% is of teak. So this causes a huge exchequer loss to the country. And again, yesterday, if I recall, Dr. Arun Bansal was asking about what are the prices for the shipments of teak logs and sawnwood in relation to India. This is the latest information that we have received from the ITO. This was published last week, wherein we find that teak is imported from almost 30 countries all over the globe, where Cameroon sawnwood, the Tanzanian sawnwood and the Myanmar sawnwood are the costliest when compared to the other countries. So considering that shortage of timber in a forested nation where 95% of plantation teak is imported by India, we also need to look into strategies to grow our own wood, because this is one way where we can become reliant and thereby reduce the exchequer. So what could be the strategies that we can adopt to grow our own wood? One would be to increase the area under tree cultivation, where we could look into fallow lands, wastelands, which are available in plenty in the country, or increase the productivity of the TOFs, as mentioned by our eminent speakers today, through agroforestry and in plantations, or use advanced technologies to increase the per unit productivity and also utilize the vast wealth of the forest genetic resources that we have, which none of the other countries have. So in this context, now that we look into land, what we aim to look into are the smallholder systems. So what are smallholder systems? These are small units of land varying from 0.5 to 2 hectares, which are available with the farming community. Especially in India, the marginal and the small scale operators dominate this area. Their land holdings are to an average of only 1 hectare. This is as per the GOI report of 2020. And what do we plan to do in these areas? The different options that we can adopt here are, one is going for either an integrated system or a block system. You could otherwise start as an agroforestry system where you have a mix of crops slowly leading towards a sole tree crop, or you can maintain these smallholder systems purely as subsistence systems for commercial production. Now, when we talk about, now that land has been identified, what about the productivity of teak? We had scanned through a lot of literature and we have collated information on what is the MAI per hectare in different countries. And there we found that in India, the rotation age varies between 30 to 50 years. And in a similar situation, we have Brazil, where the rotation age is only 20 years. The Indian MAI varies between 2 to 10 cubic meter per hectare. Whereas in the case of Brazil, where they have gone in for clonal forestry of teak, they are able to achieve an MA of as high as 32 cubic meters per hectare. Now, literature also states that with best planting sites, best planting stock, and with best planting practices, in a country like India, we can attain an MAI of 15 cubic meter per hectare with a rotation age of just 20 or 25 years. So this is possible in India. And then coming to the interest of farmers as far as teak is concerned. As Dilip Kumar sir was mentioning, there has been a lull in the interest in teak because many of the private companies had been projecting exaggerated values to the farmers initially, because of which the farmers are a little hesitant to going for teak. The major preferences of the farmers, which we understand through our studies, are that they like to go in for bud planting, or they prefer small blocks. Another matter of interest is they prefer short rotation, and then the planting stock which they get is generally seedlings, which are of unknown sources, which lead to early flowering, and thereby they are not able to get the quality that is desired for them. Let us take the case study of teak from Malaysia, where they have been able to produce and sell teak on a large scale. The teak is called Super Teak or Top Teak. Now, YSD in Malaysia is a private company which owns one of the largest and the richest teak germplasm in the world. From where did they get this teak? This was through the various international provenance trials that were laid throughout the world by the Ganida. We also had an international provenance trial like this in Maridimali in Andhra Pradesh, but Malaysia utilized this. They multiplied the material through tissue culture, which was one of the easiest methods of multiplication. They did use rooted cuttings as well as tissue culture. They did the DNA fingerprinting, and they also studied the wood characteristics at the end of 10 years. Now, once this material was developed, they distributed it to different parts of the world. Yesterday, Dr. Sandeep in his talk in TeakNet was mentioning about how teak has moved away from teak has moved away from the native regions and it has spread throughout the country. So today, whatever logs we import in India are the material that has been supplied mostly by Malaysia to different Latin American countries, and they are all young teak material that we are importing. So if Malaysia can do like this, why not India? India has gained success in tree improvement in eucalypts and cashew nuts, which are pulpwood species. So if we've been able to gain so much of success in a pulpwood species, I am sure in the days to come, we will also be able to introduce clonal forestry for timber species.
Yeah, Rekha, just
Yes,
wait.
sir.
Your slide is not visible. Others, please, इसको others, हाँ? Thomas sir, please अभी share मत कीजिए.
Sir, is it visible now, sir?
Okay, now it is okay. Yeah.
Thanks. So at IFGTB, we conducted a small study on clones versus seedlings. The plantation was carried out in the year 2000. This was carried out in our research station at Panampalli, which is in Kerala. This was a totally unmanaged plantation where we had 3 clonal materials, one from Maharashtra, from Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, and the seedlings were Nellambur seedlings. So if you look at the graph here, you would realize the height of the clones, all the 3 clones as well as the seedlings, not much of difference was seen. So that means to say that the height it does not depend on the material that we used. But if you take a look at the GBH of the clones, you can find that the clones put in twice as much as the girth that was put in by the seedlings. So this clearly indicates that if we are going to plant identified material, if we are able to use proven material in the field, that means we would be able to achieve better productivity as far as teak is concerned in plantations which is managed. Like this I mentioned was unmanaged. If we are going to manage it, we would be able to get better productivity per unit. Now, based on the results that we got, this gave us the confidence to take up the All India Coordinated Research Project on quality teak production. Here, 5 different institutes of ICFRE are involved: IFGTB, DFRI, FRI, IFP, and the AFRI. So here we have been multiplying teak through tissue culture because that's the easiest method to mass produce teak. The rooted cuttings and have their own inherent problems. So with the multiplied material, we started introducing them into farmlands. So as we started popularizing tissue culture teak in farmlands, at the end of 2 years, we did an assessment from 3 different locations as to how is the performance of this material across locations. We found an average height of 6 meters at the end of 2 years, whereas the girth varied from 20 centimeters to 28 centimeters. Now, through word of mouth, the performance of the clones started spreading, and now there has been heavy demand for this teak from various farmers across different states of the country. So presently, we have entered into an MOU with different commercial laboratories for mass production of teak so that we can supply it to the farmers from the different states. A view of how quality teak performs in block plantations as well as bund plantations. These are pictures of how the species is performing in Tamil Nadu, where in bund planting, we find that the tree has reached a height of 10 meters with a girth of 5 meters, average 10 centimeters per year. And Chhattisgarh has been one of those areas where farmers are really interested in agroforestry. We have many progressive farmers who have been approaching us for planting teak on a large scale. This is one of those progressive farmers who, right in the beginning of our venture, came to us to collect material. He planted them, and at the end of 5 years, he's been very happy with the performance. He has been coming back to us, requesting us for almost 1 lakh seedlings for planting in different farmers' fields. He has also given a lot of popularity to teak agroforestry in Chhattisgarh. So this way, we have trials in different parts of the country, both in farmers' lands as well as in the forest department land. And under the AICRP, we are looking forward to spreading quality material of teak to as far as Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand in the north. We look forward to the support of the forest department in laying out these demonstration trials so that farmers can come see for themselves the performance of the material so that they will be able to take it to their fields and practice it in their land. So though we have the site, we have material, and we have been trying to reach out to the farmers, we find that there are lots of challenges and impediments as far as smallholder teak is concerned. The first and the major issue that we find is scheduled timber. This was also discussed again today morning by Dilip Kumar sir, by Ranjan sir, and by the director IWST also. Can be called the farm-grown teak as agri-wood. So the director IWST has been taking a lot of efforts in different forums to try and bring in this concept of agri-wood so that the agroforestry grown teak will have a separate value. So this would require a lot of legal provisions coming in. So I'm sure IWST under the leadership of Dr. MPC would be able to come up with specific certifications for the agri-wood so that teak grown in farmlands can be popularized. Some of the other challenges again that we see are quality, the availability of good quality seed or the germplasm supply, low quality timber, and the lack of capital to invest in teak. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they are mostly small scale or marginal landholders, so their capacity to invest in teak is a little difficult. However, if we are able to convince them that the returns are going to be really good, then I'm sure farmers with their opportunistic management abilities will be able to get good returns, even though they have limited availability, access to resources and to investment. Then their inability to wait for longer durations, limited access to market, and poor bargaining position. Here, I would like to share a very small anecdote. One of the serving officers in his home garden, he had 8 trees of almost 1 meter width. Then he contacted the traders to sell the material. They offered him only 20,000 rupees per tree. Now, if this is the case with the serving officer, just imagine the plight of the farmers who are going to grow this teak and sell. So farmers are not in a position to bargain. We need to handhold them to find the appropriate market. The next major issue we find is the middlemen who are engaged in trade. So now, what are the ways in which we can, through research interventions, try to bring in a productivity enhancement? The first and foremost that we see is the silvicultural interventions. The first one is pruning. Once teak reaches up to 6 feet, it is better to start pruning so that the side branches do not come up. We have a very clear goal. The second major silvicultural intervention is singling. Teak has a tendency to branch, so a lot of side branches would come. If we are able to single out all those side branches at a very young age and allow the leader shoot, then we would be able to get very clear goal and very good trees. Now, this is one interesting study which has been taken up at IFGTV. Wind is a limiting factor to the growth of teak. That is a common knowledge. So now how exactly do we overcome that limiting factor? Now at IFGTV, we have conducted a study where we try to grow teak in between casuarinas. So we have tried to develop a 3-tier agroforestry model. This is the data of 3 years growth. So here, if you see, we have been able to harvest 5 crops and then also a bund crop of moringa, which continuously gives the farmer a remuneration throughout the year. And then at the end of say 2 or 3 years, he would be able to harvest casuarinas for pulp and paper production. And maybe by 15 to 20 years, the teak would have grown straight. And so he would be able to harvest this timber also. So that way, over a period of 15 to 20 years, a steady income is made available to the farmer. If such a sort of lucrative models are prescribed to the farmers, they would definitely be interested in taking up this species along with the associated species in the agroforestry model. Now, a word of caution here, because this experiment was conducted in an alluvial soil, which is very rich, and so the results appear very good. This has to be replicated in different types of soils to see what is the performance of the species, what are the different combinations that can be taken up, so that depending on the site, we would be able to prescribe the different agroforestry models. Here again, ICFRE has developed a large number of agroforestry models, which can be implemented in the different sites, and the farmers can be benefited from this. This is one of the ways by means of which we can encourage the farmers to take up agroforestry. The second major area where we need to focus on is seed supply, especially because the forest department mostly deals with the seeds. Now, teak is not to be considered as a single species because we have large number of provenances. It is always better to look at teak as provenances. Yesterday, we had talks where there was a mention of Teli teak, there was a mention of Valsad teak, there's a mention of Halwani teak, and then we have the Nilambur teak. Now, Nilambur has the GI tag. Valsad, they are looking forward to a GI tag. Now, so that teak populations are distinct and different. So it would always be better that if we collect seeds, it would be locality or region specific, because those are already proven to be superior performers. We going in for locality or region specific seeds would give better returns than using seeds from different places. And the third point would be to strengthen the seed supply, mainly from the SPAs, SSOs, and the CSOs, for commercial forestry plantations. Our aim should be for certified seeds. There was the case of OECD in 1974 when they came to India. At that time, we did not have these genetic assets with us. So we were not able to efficiently implement the OECD. But today, the conditions are different. We have all these genetic assets with us. So we may think of revisiting the OECD scheme so that whatever seeds that come out of the genetic assets available with the Forest Department could be certified. Now, IFGTB in the coming future is looking forward to taking up a pilot study on how OECD can be implemented in the Forest Department plantations, maybe taking 1 or 2 forest departments as case studies. So once you identify the seed sources and certify them, then through commercial supply of the seeds, we could also do a geotagging of the genetic assets so that we track where our seeds grow, how they are performing in the farmer's field, and how best we can support them through the techniques, the management techniques, and the silvicultural interventions that we are developing. In addition to that, the most important thing is developing seed and seedling standards for quality planting stock. So this ICFRA has already prepared a draft for the certification standards, and ICFRA has supported the state forest departments for the delineation of SSOs, CSOs, and the SPS. Now, if the state forest departments are able to translate this genetic information into the on-field performance, then that would be one of the best examples of increasing the productivity. Now, one word of caution here as far as teak is concerned. When you transport seeds across population limits, then we find that the species displays a lot of problems. That's a breakdown of the genetic structure. The first one is it loses its apical dominance. The second is early flowering. And the third one is asynchronous in flowering. So, just as we have agroclimatic zones, we also need to do a seed zonation as far as teak is concerned. So, doing a morphological, phenological, as well as molecular study, we have been able to do seed zonation in teak where 3 genealogical zones have been identified. We have Kerala as one unique set, we have Tamil Nadu, Karnataka populations as one, and we also have Karnataka and Central India, that is the dry teak as the third one. So if at all seeds have to be transported, then it should be within these locations. This is one area where we haven't been able to do much. The International Forum on FGRs clearly spells out that when we are moving germplasm across locations, we have to pay a lot of attention to the gene ecological zones, or else we lose the FGRs would not be able to put into their fullest. So this is one area where we expect a lot of caution to be exercised when we are moving teak across locations, especially in India where the teak is found between the 8 and 12 degree latitude. It would be better to exercise caution while moving the material across locations. Now, we have spoken about the sites, we have spoken about the quality planting material, the silvicultural interventions, and what caution has to be taken. In addition to all this, a lot of emphasis has also to be given into skills in forestry development, that is the development of the HR when it comes to handling forestry in the field. So the MOEF and CC has supported ICFRE through the green skill development programs, wherein ICFRE has taken up this task. It has developed its HRD by training the country in areas of plant tissue culture as well as quality planting material producer. And 40% of those whom we have trained have started their own labs and nurseries. They are aware of these problems, and with the skill that they have, they are able to promote the planting of forestry species on a larger scale. In addition to this, the ICFRA also provides training to lab personnel of Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. We have provided training to Madhya Pradesh Forest Department, Tamil Nadu Forest Department, where they have tissue culture laboratories. Yesterday, Dr. UD Singh of Gujarat Forest Department was mentioning that they have a tissue culture lab, but they are not able to utilize it to the fullest. We at ICFRA we extend our full support for any sort of technical guidance or support for large-scale production of tea, for identification of quality planting material, and we give both hands-on as well as we are ready to come to your places and then support you in your initiative in production of quality planting stock on a large scale. And we believe that a combined initiative of the state forest departments, of ICFRE and the farmers will be able to help us to augment teak timber, thereby reducing the input to the country and making our country self-reliant in food security. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rekha Madam, for your interesting talk and providing perspectives, especially of IFGTB and ICFR's role in augmenting teak timber. Thank you very much for your interesting talk. Before I go to the next speaker, it's a gentle request to all of the speakers to keep their presentation for 15 minutes, considering that we have already overshot the time. I now request Mr. Pramod Krishnan, APCC of Kerala, Forest Department, to provide the status and perspectives of augmenting teakwood in Kerala. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes. Am I audible and visible?
You are audible and visible, sir. You are audible and visible.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I don't have a presentation, but I'll just brief. As you know, Kerala is maybe the oldest state, and our history of planting teak, it goes back to 1840. So it's more than 180 years of teak planting in Kerala. I mean, or even more than that. So that's history. Now, if you look at it now, let's see, in fact, a couple of years ago, we have done a kind of a performance evaluation of the teak plantations of Kerala. And based on that, a lot of decisions have been taken, and we are in the process of implementing that. So probably, I think I will pitch. I will talk a bit about that before coming exactly on this the topic, that's how to augment the teak resources. See, as of now, Kerala has about 90,000 hectares of teak plantations. Okay, that's our official statistics. And some of these plantations are third rotation plantations. So we thought that, see, 180 years of teak planting, but exactly, so we need to do certain reality check. And this reality check was also necessitated after the 2018 floods in Kerala. Okay.
Mr. Pramod? Seems like you've been disconnected. I think you have to unmute. Mr. Pramod?
Unmute kar lijiye.
Please unmute. Mr. Pramod?
You are muted.
Now, see, one important thing which I wanted to know.
Yeah, thank you.
Am I audible?
You are audible, Mr. Pramod.
Okay.
You are audible.
Okay. Yeah. In fact, see, the first aspect we looked at was the productivity. Okay, how is it performing? See, what we saw was maybe with the way back in 1990s, the average productivity of a 60-year-old teak plantation in Kerala was about 110 cubic meter per hectare. Okay. Now, maybe a couple of years ago, when we have repeated these analyses, it has now come down to around 66 to 70 cubic meter per hectare per year. Okay, so then we started pondering on why exactly this has happened. Right? Or, is it because all our teak plantations?
Video on.
Pardon me?
Your video is off.
Yeah. See, the point I was trying to say is that there is a perceptible reduction in the productivity of teak plantations in Kerala from 110 cubic meter per hectare per year to just around 66 cubic meter per hectare per year. The reason we found was, rather, see, some of these plantations are performing extremely well. But what has happened is that we have expanded the area even to not so suitable areas also. Okay, that has actually brought down the productivity, the issue number one. Number two, we have also done kind of a demand and supply analysis. See, 86% of the teak wood in Kerala, the roundwood demand in Kerala is met from agroforestry systems. Okay, 13% is import, and the forest department's contribution towards this is just less than 1%. Okay, and we are locking up 3% of the state's land area for this. So that's another aspect. The third was customer preference. Just like Rega said earlier, that see, the people are planting what you call teak in agroforest system, but nobody is actually willing to wait for 60 years. So there is a necessity of actually having teak trees, which are of short rotation reason, and that is precisely one of the reasons why a lot of import is also coming to India. If you look at it, and they're 20-year rotation or 15-year rotation, etc., etc. So this is number three. The fourth important aspect was that how, see, in the context of forests are being managed for water, then how do we rationalize the teak plantation? So in 1919, in the 2 years ago, we constituted a technical committee. This technical committee evaluated each and every teak plantation in the state. Okay, and there are a few parameters to filter. So two decisions were taken. All teak plantations falling in site quality 4 and 5, they were straight away taken out of the list of these teak plantations because they were unsuitable for teak plantations as being managed as teak plantations, and and also areas falling in extremely disaster prone areas, wildlife corridors, riverine tracts, etc., etc. They were also taken off the list of the plantations. Okay, so essentially we have two streams of erstwhile teak growing areas. One is the teak plantations which are retained as teak plantations, number one. The number two, the areas which are taken off the list of teak plantations and going to be converted to natural forests. Okay, this is the thing. But now we are focusing now on the first segment, that is the areas which are going to be retained as teak plantations. See, the idea is that we have to improve the productivity at least 3 or 4 times from these areas. Currently, as I said earlier, the productivity is just around 66 to 70 cubic meter per hectare per year, whereas the potential productivity is around 300 cubic meter per hectare per year. See, we have been spreading too thin. All our resources were spread across these 90,000 hectares, and results were poor. And now the approach is that we may be ending up with around, say, 45,000 hectares of teak plantations in Kerala. That may just come down to half of its original area. But these retained plantations need to be brought under intensive management. Okay, so as of now, the silvicultural practices are largely limited, operations are largely limited to the first 5 years. But in our new working plans, we have also prepared a new package of practices with the help of Kerala Forest Research Institute, etc. We are actually extending the intensive management regime, maybe even to 15 years or 20 years, etc., etc. So the idea is that if you are maintaining an area as a teak plantation, then we have to go for intensive management in terms of improved timber production, both in terms of material timber production as well as in the context of climate change to sequester carbon. Okay, so that is the approach which we are doing. Now, another important aspect which we are also focusing on is agroforestry. Okay, that's a segment. Actually, there is a massive program coming up in Kerala to make every panchayat in the state carbon neutral. Okay, so as of now, the contribution of the forestry sector in sequestering carbon in Kerala is around 34%. So it is projected that there is potential to increase it to around 50%, and if we can do so, then probably Kerala can become carbon neutral by around 2036. So all the panchayats, the municipalities and corporations are being encouraged to go for massive planting drives, and definitely teak is going to be one of the most important, most sought after species in this regard. Okay, so I think this is also makes quite sensible in the sense that I'm just summarizing by saying that, see, the teak plantations in Kerala originated as part of colonial objectives of timber production. Okay, now forestry in Kerala is being looked at from multiple perspectives. It has multiple functions to perform, including hydrology, then as a source of NTFPs to the local people, then for recreation, and of course timber production also. So we are actually balancing that. So the balancing act comes through this sort of what you call a proper evaluation of all the teak plantation, a reality check. Areas unsuitable for growing teak are taken off the list and they are brought back to near natural situation. But all potential areas will be intensively managed for improved timber production. If we can do so, then probably maybe we can increase the current contribution of the forestry sector in terms of teak production from below 1% to maybe 3%. So that is a target which we are working towards. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pramod. You have given the perspective Kerala. Actually, we would have loved to have some data and some more perspective detail. So if you can include that in your write-up, which we are requesting you to make, so that others can understand the details. Otherwise, Tasneem sir is not in a position to make any comment because you have given oral submission. So, sir, आप कुछ बोलेंगे sir? Mute कर लीजिए. Mute कर लीजिए sir. Sir, muted है आप sir. Mute कर लीजिए sir. आपकी आवाज नहीं आई sir.
भाई आवाज
आप आ रही है.
नहीं, उन्होंने ये कहा, Mr. Pramod Krishnan said that productivity is 60 cubic meters per hectare per year. Now my question is it MAI or it is stocking?
No, it is stocking. It's a 60-year.
आवाज नहीं आ रही.
Sir, it is 60-year rotation. 60-year rotation, 4 silvicultural thinnings and 1 final filling. It gives 66 cubic meter per hectare per year. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. We have fallen from actually almost 300 cubic meter per hectare to 66 over a period of 50 years. That's the reason being that we have brought a lot of areas of unproductive areas under teak plantation. So that's what I was trying to say. So it is not MIA, it's a cumulative.
My question is not the rotation or how for after how many, what is the rotation period for felling, final felling. My question is simple. What is the current mean annual increment in Kerala? Whether it is 60 kilometers, I think it is impossible to have 60 kilometers per hectare per year.
Why are you again harping on 60? I clarified that's not MII. I said the total production of timber from a 60-year plantation is this. MII details I will give.
Total production.
It's not MII.
Production.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Total
That's right.
quantity.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Thank you. Right. Thank you.
दिलीप कुमार साहब कुछ कमेंट कर.
इको हो रही है आवाज.
Sir, why?
It's okay. I'm making some comments on the side.
Sir,
आप
you
बात
can,
करिए. My one point is, आप बहुत ज़्यादा monoculture करने से वो खतरा होगा. So when you do agroforestry, please keep a good species mix. And why you are getting 60 cubic meters after the third rotation is because the site has deteriorated. And this is common in intensive forestry. So जब आप लोग intensive की बात करते हैं तो it really scares me because it obviously means heavy thinning and a lot of soil working which will lead to soil erosion. So these are the 2 points. Please don't make the mistakes we made in the last 30 years.
Augmenting Teak in Kerala. Now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Ashok Kumar Sinha, APCC of Telangana Forest Department, to provide status and perspectives of Telangana. Over to you, sir.
Sir, am I audible? Hello? Am I audible, sir?
As well as your slides are visible, sir. Thank you.
Am I visible also? Am I visible and audible, sir?
you can go ahead, please.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Good morning to senior officers and colleagues from the other states. So I will be splitting my topic in 2 parts. That is, one is the current situation prevailing in the Telangana forest and also the roadmap for the future requirements. So I will start my slides presentation. So this is the map showing the Telangana, and this is the northern portion of Telangana where we are having the natural teak bearing forest. And the southern portion, and this is the bordering the river Godavari. On both the sides of the river Godavari, we have got natural teak forest. But the southern portion, the principal species Hardwickia pinnata, we are divide of teak in these areas. Means teak is there, but it is secondary. So the location part, so there's nothing to discuss about this. We have got this tropical climate, and then the whole region of Telangana is divided into 3 agroclimatic zones. So these are North Telangana zone, which includes Adilabad, Komram Bhim, Asfabad, Mancherial, Peddapalli, Jagtial, Nirmal, Rajanna, Sirsila, Kamareddy, Karimnagar districts. These are on the either side of the river Godavari. So these are natural teak bearing areas where the rainfall is 950 to 1150 and temperature ranges from 15 degrees to 40 degrees Celsius. And they are having red soils, predominant includes chalks. So these are areas which are having natural teak forest. Now the central region, this is also partially we have got teak in this area also, and in some of the districts we are divided of teak. Means teak is in secondary. Then southern Telangana region. Southern Telangana region, we have got this area which is having a temperature 20 to 38 degrees Celsius and rainfall is less. This is rain shadow area, 560 to 800 millimeter. And this area is having very, very less teak, almost divide of teak. So district-wise, erstwhile districts, we have got this, and the district-wise status of forest is like this, the area-wise. Then types of forest, we have got this type of forest, about 13 types of forest. And then the status of natural teak forest. If we are talking about the teak for the future, and then what is the stocking of natural teak in the natural teak forest? That is in the northern part of Telangana. So if we see the growing stock, which was as per the FS, Forest Survey of India recent reports, the total growing stock of Telangana is coming to 80.20 million cubic meter. That is inside the forest, and outside is 43.76 million cubic meter. Whereas the ground stock per unit area, if we see, then it is coming to 28.97 cubic meter per hectare, and outside 5.32 cubic meter per hectare. So if we compare this growing stock per unit area with the adjacent states, that is Maharashtra, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, AP, it is very, very low as compared to all the surrounding states. So what are the factors contributing to this dwindling of our forest in Telangana? Because so many factors such as heavy biotic pressure, then rise of left-wing extremism was in 1890s. So we almost lost control over the forest. Inside the forest, people were just, villagers were taking over. So a lot of destruction and degradation took place during those periods. The topography of the teak-bearing areas which we have got in Telangana, that is mostly plain area. So it is very approachable, accessible by the human beings. And then overgrazing, the runoff of the topsoil, industrial urbanization. Industrial urbanization, what I mean to say here is, those all the teak-bearing forests in our state, they are also having coal-bearing area. And due to coal-bearing, Singareni collieries are also there. Their colonies have come up. And due to that, the total pressure of their furnitures and requirement of other timber that is made from the forest illegally, although it is illegally totally. Then unsatisfactory natural regeneration. Over the years, what we have found is the natural regeneration in the forest is very much lacking, and means it is not able to come up. Because over the years, due to repeated hackings, the age of the shoots or age of the stumps, root stock has increased so much that the vigor in those coffee shoots are not so much so as to have a future teak stand, we can say. Then occurrence of repeated fires. So what is the strategy for augmenting of teak? Now we have got, I can divide into two-pronged strategy inside the reserve forest and outside the reserve forest. Now, what we are doing is we are protecting the valuable teak forest by providing the digging of large size trench inside the, on the periphery of the reserve forest, and also planting with Silvicultural bamboo on the bunds. These are large size bunds, means 2 meter top width, 2 meter depth, and 1.5 meter bottom width. So this is mainly for the protection of all the teak forest bearing area, and in general we are doing for all reserve forest. Now, depending on the canopy density of the reserve forest, we are treating these areas. Now 0.4 density to 1, that is 100%. The only it requires is protection and SMC works we are doing in the forest. And then 0.1 to 0.4, we have got enough root stocks which can be assisted. That may be ranging from 800 root stocks to 1200 or 1500 root stocks per hectare. And in those, we are just assisting it to come up and rejuvenate the forest again. Now, there are certain open areas that is density from 0 to 0.1, that we do artificial regeneration, and that we are doing with mainly miscellaneous species, local miscellaneous species. So ANR, assisted natural regeneration canopy density 0.1 to 4, and then what are the operations we are doing? That is removal of obnoxious weeds, coppicing, shingling, and gap planting, and then SMC bursts. So on the bunds we are, which is peripheral bunds, 1750 plants, which includes Silvicultural Banduk also. Then we are going for artificial regeneration in a canopy density from 0 to 0.1. And also we are taking up old eucalyptus plantations, which were of seed origin in nature, and also the clonal plantations, which we are following the rotation period as per the prescription in the working plan. So methods adopted may be labor intensive or clearing the area and clearing the area, burning, pitting, and planting with the SMC works. And in semi-mechanical method, because this area we are treating planting in with two types. One is labor intensive, one is semi-mechanical. In semi-mechanical, we are clearing the area, burning, plowing, pitting, planting, and SMC works we are doing. Now, these are the teak plantations which have been raised in the Telangana since first financial year plan. That is first plan. So 1950-56 to up till now. Then recent plantations which we have observed, recent teak plantation which we have observed, is, means they are lacking in the performance which is desired for a plantation to perform. So what may be the reasons for the teak plantation not to come up? Because we have done some teak plantation in recent times also, and they are, I am afraid, they are not performing very well. So maybe the reasons that runoff of the topsoil has taken place, resulting in the deficiency of the nutrients, heavy grazing pressure, then compactness of soil over the years, repeated fires, then erratic rainfall. We have seen rainfall pattern also quite erratic in our country and even in Telangana. Even rainfall, what it used to be earlier, now it has reduced also. So lesser rainfall. And then poorer quality of the planting material. So it is combination of all these factors that the performance of teak plantations is being reduced. Then if we have done supply and demand study in 2013 in erstwhile Andhra Pradesh, and we could see the total demand of Andhra Pradesh, the then Andhra Pradesh in 2013 was about 4,73,892 cubic meter, and the supply was only 1,71,998 cubic meters. So there was shortfall of 64%. So even today, after the formation of Telangana, I think the scenario is not different than this. And also we are trying to tie up with IWST Bangalore for again a study of wood balance study, and then we'll come up with that. What is the requirement and what is the demand and what is the supply now? Now, what is the strategy for the future? So, if we have, we cannot bank on the natural forest for getting teak, and to meet the to bridge the gap between the demand and supply. So, we need to have captive planting. That means to start with, we can start in a smaller area in each circle which is having natural teak bearing area, and these captive planting, if it, after success, that can be also replicated elsewhere in the teak bearing forest and as well as outside the teak forest area. So how to go about it? Now, taking up plantation in small pockets in the natural teak bearing area, these plantations should be with improved techniques and improved planting material, because total combination of the techniques and the planting material and also site preparation, all these things are responsible for a success of the teak plantation. So amendment of soil nutrient to suit the requirement of the teak plantation, uprootal of, and then after this thing, how to do the amendment means uprootal of stumps, tilling and deep plowing for the area. It means that the soil which has got compacted, and to increase the porosity of the soil, we must need the uprootal of the stumps which is already existing, and tilling to a depth of 45 centimeter or so, and then again deep plowing with FMB plow. Then after that, planting with teak stumps we can have, and teak stumps can be obtained from means improved variety of seedlings. Then bag plants, then bag from tissue culture obtained from suitable clones, and suitable clonal planting also we can do. Scientific post planting, then we have to do the scientific post planting silvicultural operations, and total protection. If we have to have this captive planting, and total protection has to be provided, so we can go with fencing, with barbed wire or with chain link fence. So this will be only for a smaller to start with, to show that we can do it. Now, outside the reserve forest, as we all know, that we are having this Haritaram program in Telangana, that is a flagship program of Telangana. And the total target for the plantation was 230 crores. Outside the forest area, 130 crores, which included 10 crores of HMDA and GHMC areas, and 120 crores in the villages, that is rural areas, and 100 crores by the forest department. In that 100 crores, we are planting 20 crores through plantation and 80 crores through means ANR, assisted natural regeneration. Recently, I must tell at this point to the August gathering that recently we had amendment in the Panchayati Raj Act, in which the 10% of all the developmental funds in the Panchayat is for the greening, and we are having a green fund now, and all the stakeholders of the society are being are paying for this. Even the All India Services people also, 100 rupees per month we are paying for this. So this is a Harita Nidhi fund which will be having for taking up all the greenery activity anywhere in the state. So now we have actually the earlier what we see in Telangana, means moisture percentage was very less, low rainfall, erratic rainfall. Now we have got a lot of irrigation projects coming up. So the water regime of the state will increase immediately. Now, means in a few years it will be quite, means most of the area will be saturated with water. We have got Kaleshwaram irrigation project, Palmuru Rangareddy project, and Sriram project. So Sitaram project. In this, by this, almost total estate will be covered with irrigation, and for taking up the captive plantation, even by the state means forest department or by the people in general, that will be quite useful, and means they can go for all this. Now, traditional teak plantation, if we see what we were doing earlier, how it was performing. So in that, what we were doing is there was a teak conservation conversion working circle as per the working plan prescription. As per that prescription, traditional teak planting were being taken up in those areas. So in that, clear felling, burning, and planting root shoot stumps in crowbar holes. This was the traditional method, within a spacing of 2 into 2 meters, just after the first monsoon rain in the month of June. Now, initially stocking was kept at 2,500 plants. Then subsequently, thinning also was there. That was 7th year, 14th year, 22nd year, and 32nd year. The reduction in the number of stems ranges from 2,500 to 200 as given here. So, in 7th year and 14th year, we used to do the mechanical thinning, and 22nd year and 32nd year, we were doing silvicultural thinning. And the rotation period was kept at 50 to 60 years. Now, plantations in undivided AP were raised in site quality of 2/3 and also 3 site quality. Dry deciduous and moist deciduous forests were there. Average rainfall in those areas 1,000 to 1,200 millimeter. Maximum temperature 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. Now, average productivity of teak plantation harvested from 1990 to 2005 was coming to 1.2 to 1.4 cubic meter per hectare per year. So this was scenario. Now, national average, if we compare with the national average, it is about 2.54 cubic meter per hectare per year. So analysis indicates the decline in the productivity by the earlier techniques which we are following. So how to come out of that and how to go for the future? So reasons for this low productivity were not single. It was a combination of all these factors. That is poor quality of planting stock raised from genetically inferior seeds, low organic content of the soil site, poor subsoil moisture, repeated fires, heavy grazing, enormous soil and water erosion, compactness and impoverishment of soil, the initial competition with gregarious weeds like lantana and mavira in these areas, then attack by teak defoliators also, and untimely thinning. So these were the factors contributing to the low productivity. Now, how to raise the high productive teak plantation that is in the captive area which we are talking about. So we must have matching site selection for the teak to come up, and then site preparation of that area. Then teak, what is the requirement of teak? Teak needs deep, well-drained, fertile soils with an optimum pH that may be neutral, that is 6.5 to 7.5 neutral to slightly alkaline. Then soils can be ameliorated with appropriate cultural practices to improve the tree growth. And then with good monsoon and efficient management of the rain and groundwater, the vast area of the degraded forest land can be profitably put to use under teak plantation. Then, sorry. To make the hard soil of degraded forest porous, the soil needs to be tilled and deep plowed, because over the years, this area has become totally very hard and compact due to heavy grazing and lot of movement. So, and humus content has been removed by runoff. So the soil has become totally hard. And so to make it porous, soil need to be tilled and deep plowed. Then sun hemp, because the nutrient content and the soil texture and soil composition also has taken a beating. So we must do the sun hemp seeds may be broadcasted and cut by before they are flowering, and they have to be plowed into the soil. The process will enhance the nitrogen content, and then we can digging up it by 45 centimeter cube, and then we can do over planting in those areas. So quality of the planting stock. Again, the productivity of the teak will depend on the genetic and physiographic quality of the planting material. The planting propagules may be either genetically improved seedling or tissue culture origin of the genetically improved clones. Seeds from the seedling seed or the clonal seed orchard can be sown in the primary beds, and they have to be culled intensively to bring it down to 30 to 50%, which is physiologically dominant seedlings, and that may be utilized for production of root shoot stumps. And these stumps should be put in the containers to have stump sprouted seedlings. Now, the root trainer planting stock of the genetically improved seed have a better survival. If we put in the root trainers, that will have a better survival and better growth rate in the initial stages as compared to the normal teak stumps. So other alternative is the deployment of high yielding clones. So earlier there was a research in which we have identified 5 top ranking clones in our state, and they are also means planted here to Hyderabad also. So we can utilize these clones in those suitable areas from where the clones have originated in earlier. So these clones can be mass propagated by tissue culture or rooting of juvenile cuttings of the eucalyptus, just like eucalyptus clonal propagation which we are doing in the field. Actually, we were having earlier this tissue culture lab at Ashwai Andhra Pradesh, Tirupati, and also in Muluk, Hyderabad. But they are in dormant stage. We need to rejuvenate them and start with once again. So now the site, in the site, we have to get this nutrient management also, because we can see the sites for the where we are planting the tea, they are totally almost devoid of the nutrients. So that's why
अशोक
if
थोड़ा
us
डिटेल में मत जाओ, ज्यादा टाइम लग रहा है, तो थोड़ा सा ओवरव्यू देते हुए निकल जाओगे तो हो जाएगा पूरा जल्दी.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So this nutrient management, how to, I will give the write-up also, sir. So how to improve the nutrient in the soil, and then we can means how application of this is, we have to find we have found the application of 163 kg urea, 375 kg of masuri phosphate, 105 kg of muriate of potash, 105 kg of quicklime and 373 kg of magnesium sulfate per hectare is recommended for young plantations, and that can be in 2 splits in the first year and 4 splits in the second and third year. And such applications generally aim at ameliorating the soil condition, because in the initial stage only not the nutrient is required, nutrient will be required for the rest of the rotation period also. That so we have to keep this, if we have to have good performance in the captive teak plantations. Now we can have nitrogen fixing trees also in between the rows of the teak plantation, that is Lucina, which will stimulate the growth of the teak and also improve the soil in the nitrogen content. So like this, sir, we can improve that. Now irrigation. After planting, we have to have the irrigation system, that is drip irrigation system, and also with fortification we have to be there, and then or we have to have this extensive water harvesting structures to retain the soil and moisture. Then cultural operation. After planting, we must have cultural operation, that is initial intensive soil working, elimination of weeds at the earlier stages involves establishment of stacking in the plants, and then pruning and thinning, followed by pruning and thinning. So pruning, we have to take first pruning. They are recommended for.
और जल्दी कंक्लूड कर दो, बहुत ज्यादा टाइम हो गया.
ठीक है सर, कर रहे हैं.
ठीक है, ये सब ओवरव्यू खाली दिखाते जाओ स्लाइड.
I'll just go through that, sir.
थिनिंग ये सब, हाँ.
Sir. Then thinning regime is there. Then plant protection, and then probable yield I will just explain. So assuming an average of 5 cubic meter per hectare per year in 20-year rotation, production would be 100 cubic meter in a hectare with a stocking of 200 stems per hectare. In other words, 0.5 meter cube per tree is probable yield in 20 years. If we follow all these prescriptions which I was mentioning, then we can probably achieve this type of productivity. And the price of teak logs improves substantially in the market. Now, average current price in Telangana, I can say, this is 1 lakh per cubic meter, which is 1 lakh per cubic meter. And with conservative estimate, if we double the current price, then expected market price will be 2 lakh per hectare after the end of the 20 years. And then we can get 2 crore rupees per hectare at the end of 20 years. So this is quite lucrative for the farmers also. And so by taking up this type of plantation, we can bridge the gap between the demand and supply after 20 years. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashok Kumar Sinha, for your inputs on states and perspective on status and perspectives of augmenting teak in Telangana. May I now request Dr. Kurvila Thomas, PCCF, Director, State Forest Research Institute, Uttar Pradesh Forest Department, to share with us perspectives and status of UP Forest Department in augmenting teak timber. Over to you, sir, now.
इनको बुलाए, इनको बुलाए।
जो क्वेश्चन होगा बाद में पूछेंगे लोग एक साथ,
हाँ, महेंद्र को
ठीक है? Let us have few more presentations to cover up the time.
इसको ये करो पड़ेगा, बराबर ना?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Presentation is visible, sir. Visible.
Okay, good afternoon all.
Slide show में कर लेंगे तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा सर।
स्लाइड शो आया नहीं है?
नहीं, अभी नहीं आया सर, अभी उसको थोड़ा स्लाइड शो में कर लेंगे तो जल्दी होगा। हाँ, राइट सर, उसी को दबा दी। राइट सर।
Good afternoon all esteemed participants. I'm thankful to IWST Dr. MP Singh for inviting Uttar Pradesh Forest Department to present the case. As you see in the figure, our honorable Chief Minister is planting the tree. After the bifurcation of Uttarakhand, we were deprived of the good forest. Now we have only 6.15% of the forest, of the geographical area under the forest. But we have a very proactive government which is going in for plantation, large scale plantation over the last 5 to 6 years, and the result is visible. So I will be going through some slides very, very quickly because at the time is not much available. So for doing any planning, we should know where we are and what we are. So I already told we have only 6.5%, 6.15%, out of which major chunk is open forest. Only 1%, less of 1% is the VDF. MDF is something around 1.6%, and mostly we have open forest. So what we have to go, any plantation drive or any green or any production, we will have to go for outside forest. So our entire emphasis is on tree outside forest. I will give you some more data. The geographical areas, because we have know 7.3% and we are supporting 16.85% of the population. So if we go to that, our per capita availability is only 0.008 hectares, grossly inadequate. Even though India's average availability is also very less, 0.6, but compared to that, per capita availability of forest area for the in UP is very less. But when we go to the efforts of the last 5 years, it is visible as per the FSI reports. Tree cover has increased by 79 square kilometers. Tree outside forest has extended is 13,000 square kilometers, hectares. Growing stock has increased substantially. If you see the diameter class wise, Tectona grandis, this is the data from obtained, and the reserve forest we have across the diameter class. Teak is available, but in a very, very less quantity, not compared to many South Indian teak growing states. So dominant tree species outside the tree outside forest, if you see in the rural areas, Mangifera indica is the common species adopted by the people. Eucalyptus popular, Acidica indica, and Delveris issue. Tectona grandis has not come. Sorry, it is has not been adopted in a large scale. But now things are changing. As far as for the rural urban areas, the condition is also slightly different. Tectonic conditions has been came. But if you see the carbon stock, we have a substantial quantity we are trying to increase. Now the emphasis of the department is on climate change, carbon sequestration, RED+, carbon marketing, etc., etc. So we continuously monitor the carbon stock in the forest, and every event when the climate change conclave was there, it was made climate carbon neutral by planting sufficient number of trees at a site, at various sites. So the emphasis is on planting more trees, making all the activities carbon neutral. So this is a very important slide when we plan for increasing the land tree cover or tree outside the forest. If you see, the forest cover is only very less, but we have to concentrate on areas under miscellaneous cultural wasteland, fallow lands, current fallows, net zone area. So what we are trying to do is that block plantations, basically agroforestry model, block plantations along the bunds and the species, making people according to the people's need. Last plantation drive, around 30,000 microplants were made in every district level or at the panchayat level, depending on the necessities, depending on the desire of the people. The department is trying to raise the plantations and distribute as per the microplan with the geotagging and maintaining a chain of custody documentation. So this is what I told you. The government is fully committed to greening UP because we are aware of our deficiency. Honorable CM wants plantation drive to be taken in a major scale. Once it starts, he himself goes to various places, and we are very happy to say, Honorable PM, Prime Minister, whenever he comes, he plants a tree, wherever occasions is tree, and it has become a norm. Whenever the VIP functions comes, tree has to be planted, and in that way, the tree planting culture is slowly getting imbibed in the culture of the Uttar Pradesh. And not you can see from the figures, 2015 it was 5.7. It is increasingly going up. In last from Paris Agreement 2015, we have already planted 112 crores of trees, and this year the plantation target is 35 crores. And see, for providing the saplings for this plantation drive, we are raising nurseries. I have listed the number of nurseries. We have 1,813 departmental nurseries. There are hundreds of private nurseries also. That document, that data at present I am not having. But we see number of saplings raised, almost 78 crores have been raised over the last 3 years. So other figures are also available. So the plantation drive, along with the nursery raising and along with the capacity building, this is going on in a major stride. If you see the number of saplings, teak saplings raised, it was to 19, 20, 13%. It was 2000 because teak has been supplied by the private farmers also. In 2021-22, only 10% in the departmental nurseries. This is basically because as per the microplan and as per the demand we are raising, need-based. So if you see the teak scenario in Uttar Pradesh, everybody, because it has already been told, teak is one of the best known species. It is known for its grain durability, a color, its workability, and all those things. It has been explained in detail, so I don't want to go it again. But if you see the natural plantations, natural teak, because everybody knows the northern boundary of Indians is the natural boundary for the teak. So if you see that these areas, Lalitpur, Jhansi, we have something around in Lalitpur district, which is in the Bundelkhand area, 20,000 hectares, Jhansi 3,100 hectares. All other teak trees have been almost planted in the Tarai belt. And in the Tarai belt also, you can see almost 50% is in the sanctuary areas now. We have excellent plantations in Soilwa, Sohibarwa, Gorakhpur, Kadania Ghat. And in these areas, there are not much plantation commercial activities are happening. But even in the reserve forest area, only dry living trees have been felled. And as per the working plan prescription, normally 50-year rotation is prescribed. By that time, the DBH will be something around 40 to 50. That is the exploitable diameter prescribed. But thinning is also prescribed in the working plan at the 10th year, 20th year, and 30th year. But because of budgetary constraints and other difficulties, these thinning operations is not. I don't have data for the productivity as such because this commercial production has not been. That data have to be collected and will be shared. But normally, UP is not a teak growing area, but wherever the teak has been planted along the Tarai belt, it has come up very nicely, excellent. The plantations are there. And now our focus is on extending need to tree outside the forest in the agroforestry models. So here also agroclimatic wise potential we have calculated for the for formulating the agroforestry policy. There was a tectonic grandies in the eastern northeastern area because that entire belt of Maharajganj, Gorakhpur, and extending up to Siddharth Nagar, then Gonda. This is the area which is good for teak and good quality teaks in Gonda, and all Gonda teaks are more famous, and it is going on. Now we are collecting the specimen seeds and other clonal material from this area and propagating to other areas. So this is an extraction we have got from the UP Forest Department. This figure is only pertaining to the forest areas only. So they have the exclusive right to fell from the reserve forest. So there is a decrease in the production from the. This is basically because commercial harvesting is not very much there. Only dying and fallen trees have been extracted. And as the other speakers were saying, teak is very costly. There is a diameter-wise, length-wise, because 1 cubic meter fetches as well as 1.5. That is the average forest corporation rates. Market rates may be much more than that. So teak is in high demand. Earlier in UP, sesame was also grown in the agroforestry. All household had sesame, but unfortunately with the wilting disease, teak sesame plantations are coming down, and there is the demand from the people for other alternatives, and there is this liking for teak is catching up, and accordingly we have to give more saplings, and we will have to augment the plantation programs. So teak plantations, as the earlier speakers have also mentioned about it, now because the teak is high valuable, they are being planted everywhere. So there is no proper guidance. Of course, we are doing our best for the capacity building training programs are there, but in all sites, even when I have seen in the Tarai areas, water intensive areas also, they are planting teak. So the site selection, there should be sufficient emphasis on the site selection, because it has been proven by various observations and experiments, and because proper site selection itself improve the productivity by almost 100%. Now we'll have to get, it has been emphasized time and again, high quality timber, it should be there, it should be the planting material. Planting material should be of, when we go for large plantations, large scale plantation, there is a danger, because we are not, so far, we are not able to certify the saplings, certify the seeds. We are not able to assure that the seed source is from the genetically known, well-known area. And this is a major concern. And unless and otherwise we increase the seed supply of such suppliers, increase the supply of certified seed or genetically known varieties, then the plantation program may fail in the long run. So we'll have to have both the policies. We have to have a short-term policy. We have to have a long-term policy. Short-term policy should be for the establishment and management of the seed production areas, clonal orchards, clonal banks, seed and production that we are trying to do, but considering the large-scale plantation activities and large-scale demand for teak and other concerned species for agroforestry, we are not able to. That's where the concern area we will have to. And we have tissue culture laboratories, but due to the funding and due to the experts, we are not able to produce it to the maximum extent as per the requirement. This is one of the concerns we'll have to address in the long term. Long term, we'll have to have tree improvement strategies. We will have to have genetic pool. We will have to have field trials. We will have to do all these systematic for the tree improvement, and we'll have to have FGR, resources certified and preserved. All these short-term and long-term measures have to be taken to sustain this plantation drive. So as I already told, that the quality plan, as many speakers were stressing on that after site selection, the major thing responsible for the productivity and the success of the plantation drive and for the farmers is that quality planting. The seed supply sources, just I explained, seed production areas are there, seed orchards are there, clonal seed orchards are there, planted plus trees are there. So we have a potential as per our records around 10,000 quintals of seed. It was not maintained properly. We as UP Forest Department had a culture of having established seed production areas and supply of good quality seeds. But over the last few years, because of the scarcity of funds and the scarcity of other things, this has come down. We are trying to revamp the entire thing, because unless and otherwise we are able to provide quality planting material, whatever the projections we are making will not be able, and the farmers may not get the income that we are assuring. Along this, again, the equipment can be provided by the vegetative methods and tissue culture. It has been explained in detail by our various speakers. I don't want to spend time on this. So again, but it has also been mentioned by the various speakers. Once a quality planting material, once a site is selected, once a quality planting material is provided, the management is important, very, very important. It has been stressed by the earlier speaker also. What happens? Many of the farmers doesn't know they plant it and then leave it. They don't know the correct planting techniques, and they go for cheap planting material from the private sector from suppliers. So we have to do a lot of hand holding to the farmers at the stage of quality standing selection, preparing and planting. The plant spacing is also important. Somewhere we have seen we are planting it one by one and they are not doing any thinning. And we are seeing many co-piecing, they are not doing the pruning in time. And my previous speaker stressed on the fertilization and watering. That has not been in what should be the fertilization regime, what should be the watering regime. Weeding is not done. Pruning is a very important thing. And Sachin was saying, by thinning alone, we can 5 times increase the productivity. So thinning has not been prescribed. Then again, there are sporadic cases of insect damage. There are not much mentioning about. So management of teak plantations is equally important, is very important, not equally important, very important at first after the site selection and this. So only thing is that we have to do large scale capacity building, large scale training programs for the farmers, and that is what we are being attempting, because our targets are very high. All of a sudden we increase the target, so we need to have quality seedling and the management practices told to them. So there are the good news about, because of the assessment was done and 77 lakh cubic meter is this assessment was done by to assessing the wood-based industries in UP, because as per the Honorable Court's order. So we are not very good in very advanced in the wood-based industries, but we are making a leap for clump. We are trying our best to do it. So I'll tell something on the wood-based industry scenario, because this is important. Once you don't have the proper market, now we have to send it to Haryana or long places, the transportation will not be economical. And that is why, as people told, the people, farmers are not getting the correct price. If they don't get the correct price, they will not go for large scale plantations. And our objective of doubling the income of the farmers and giving them alternate income will fail. So along with that, we are trying, along with all our programs, as I told earlier, carbon emission estimation and carbon marketing is also being stressed. If we say there are no new wood-based industries after 1997 because of the Novel High Court order, we are making effort to project the output, project the production, and to do whatever is possible to have more wood-based industries to come up in the UP, so that the farmers are assured of a proper market. So way forward, because as I am telling, because the emphasis is on the carbon emission and its mitigation, because UP also plan to become carbon neutral in next 20-25 years. So as we are told, potential to double the wood-based industries for 10 years. So this is what we are trying to project when we are with the seminars with the farmers. That the first question is where the plants will come up and where we sell it. And I have already told that more than 100 crores has been planted in 5 years, and the figures I have already shown. The forest cover and the tree cover both are increasing as per the FSI report. It's a very good sign. It shows that our massive plantation efforts are bearing fruits. So number of wood-based industries are also going to increase, and there is a shift in policy for giving the licenses, and we are making it ease of business. Our state is going up in the way. So wood-based industries also we are trying to make establishment easy. So one of the issues that is all over the Tree Protection Act. The farmers has to do a lot of transactional cost. They have to incur a lot of transactional cost, lot of time wasted in getting the tree permit and transport permit. And because of that, they are getting almost 20 to 25% of the market value. This is a great disincentive, but UP made a great effort to exempt all species except mango, neem, sal, mahua, care in 62 districts which doesn't have much forest. But unfortunately, Honorable entity in his wisdom has caused this notification saying that indiscriminate cutting of trees violate Article 20 of the Constitutions. In their judgment, they say exemption clauses can only be in the exception situation. So this, in spite of the government's honest disease, this tree permit and transit permit regime could not be simplified, but the efforts are going on. And when we say finding resources for massive target, because so far the government was very generous to give the budget, but this much of budget may not be available. So the government is telling the department to see CSR funds, R&D funds, and other sources also. So such a massive drive needs a lot of funding, and we will have to go for innovative funding sources. R&D for developing economically viable species. Everything, because monoculture we cannot propagate, so we have to for other species also for agroforestry. Agroforestry model has to be developed. And teak will be the major species. Earlier the major species was sesame, but because of the wilt disease, so we are in contact with FRI to promote wilt resistant sesame. So we are in contact with the FRI and other institutions from Milia, dubia and other species, mahogany, etc. species also. But our emphasis will be on two species, particularly the teak and the sesame. Sesame, if we can propagate sesame and the teak in the agroforestry with appropriate models, and a lot of models have been developed by FRI, CAFRI, and our own institute also. We are making the demonstration trials, and we are trying to get the gate. And this will be great incentive for the people, because we have already developed agroforestry model for popular, and it is in the western parts. It is very well developed, and for farmers got very much benefit from the popular based agroforestry. Now in the other eastern UP and other parts of the Uttar Pradesh, we need to raise this type other species, particularly we will try for placing on based on the teak. Then now we have a policy for the fair distribution of the saplings during this plantation drive. Wherever it has been included for the farmers, for the institutions, etc., which has come within the micro plan. So we have free distribution. It has been continued. So the need is increasing the incentives, because of social agroforestry. We are giving incentives. We need more incentives to be given.
Sir, kindly conclude, sir.
Yeah. Concluding that, one more slide only. Market linkages. I told in detail. Market linkages are very much essential. Then the ban on the private. Then this is my last slide. So based on the interactions with the government, with the various stakeholders, we are formulating the draft Uttar Pradesh tree outside policy, the agroforestry outside forest policy. This is because repeatedly we are convinced that because of our nature of the forest, we cannot do much on the forest, but we will of course be trying to protect. We will be trying to protect the natural regeneration, ANR, etc. But large scale thrust will be given on the TOF. So basically, inclusion of the tree forest in agriculture crop, enhance employment, income, livelihood, protect, stabilize agriculture ecosystem, promote woodlot industries. So the emphasis will be on quality planting material to farmers, high-tech nurseries, tissue culture labs, high-yielding clone development, various species. Then we will call the agriculture produce. Then we have the minimum support price. Then tree insurance scheme is also being attempted. We are trying to do on incentivize the agroforestry saplings, financial assistance, then tying up with the financial banks for doing then carbon financing in a big way. We are trying to do the carbon financing with additionality to the farmers, and which will prompt them to be then make it from the buyer's market to a seller's market. Krishi Vanigi Upaj Mandi. This is what, just like the vegetable mandis we try to do. Then Inam, Agroforestry, lot of initiatives has been taken, been tried about to because together with the massive plantation drive, we should have all this system in place so that after 10 years, 15 years, when the products come, then there should be proper marketing. So such a long-term planning is being done. Then promote establishment wood-based industries. The market linkages wood-based industries are very, because UP doesn't have, as I told you earlier, much wood-based industries. So that is a disincentive for the farmers. So we'll have major clusters, just like in Saharanpur, just like in Bareilly, the clusters which already where industries are there. We are trying to develop those clusters. Then we are collaborating with the various research institutions to develop more clones, more varieties, and we are having the training programs, and all those is agroforestry mission is already been handled by the forest department. So likewise, so tree outside forest and faces is on the teak forest, and whatever small area we have around 74,000 hectares we are having on that, whatever we can improvement we are trying to do, and the southern belt, even this northernmost border of the teak, and it's not very low quality teak, but it's still there, whatever improvement we can do. So a little bit of forest teak, try to improve it and expand in a massive way to the tree outside forest to agroforestry, planting good quality material and teaching them, hand-holding them in the good management practices. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your very exhaustive presentation about the UP. You are focusing on the TOF. I've just shared one draft for TOF Act to you. Please go through that. If you see if that works for your state, I will be glad to have your inputs. Thank you, sir.
Sure, we will do, because there's no other way in UP rather than go through the TOF route.
Sir, yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kurlina Thomas, for elaborating your thoughts on the prospects of augmenting teak timber in UP. Now I call upon the next speaker. It's my honor to invite Mr. P. Kalyan Kumar, APCC of Maharashtra Forest Department, for elucidating his views on augmenting teakwood with reference to Maharashtra. Over to Mr. P. Kalyan Kumar, please.
Yeah, good afternoon to all, and good afternoon to seniors and colleagues who are participating in this webinar. So this is the scenario in Maharashtra. We have been seeing a good increase in the tree cover with respect to the 2019 estimation in the India State of Forest report, which is very encouraging. There has been a slight increase in the forest cover also, and also various other parameters, certainly encouraging for Maharashtra and for the country. And if we see the implementation of working plans in the state, the areas where predominantly teak working happens, that I have tried to show here, we have about 12,25,000 hectare, which we can say falls under some sort of teak management. Intensive in case of TPWC and old teak plantation working circles, and not so intensive, but some extraction do take place in our SCI forests. And if we see the annual average availability of teak timber, it's roughly about 8 lakh cubic meters. And I have tried to classify them with respect to the source. When I say forest depots, it also includes the depots of Forest Development Corporation also. And you can see that the most important aspect to be noted is the imports. The imports into Maharashtra is roughly about 1,70,000 cubic meter of teak. It's quite a sizable thing. The very webinar focuses on how to address this issue. I think the way forward. So I've tried to capture certain aspects in the way forward slide, which I think I would be more interested to discuss. Yeah. I think in Maharashtra, probably the scenario in other states also, there is a lot of regulation that is in vogue through the various acts. So we have the 1969 Act in Maharashtra, which regulates felling of scheduled timber on the farmlands and also the transport rules. I think there's a time has come to have a relook at all these felling, rules, the restrictions. I think this, if we can do this, I think there is a big scope to take teak as well as other timbers forward. And the second potential I see is the NREGA scheme. NREGA should not be just looked upon as a labor, the employment generating scheme. Rather, we can focus it on for asset generation by taking up agroforestry of teak in a suitable manner. We already have models in Maharashtra, not only for teak nursery, but also for plantations and NREGA, which I think there is an opportunity here, which needs to be properly encased. There is an opportunity to bring the producers and the wood-based industries on the same platform by having some sort of a buyback mechanism, so that the producers are insured against their produce and the wood-based industries are also insured about the supply side. So the insurance on both sides will take it forward. That's what I feel. Then regarding the working plan implementations, there is a general tendency to be more conservative about the prescriptions that we give in the working plans. One such thing which I noticed in most of the working plans, and also it is mentioned in the code also, that what is silviculturally available. The prescription says that you cannot have yield extraction more than 50% of that. I mean, that I find it very bizarre. That when we say scientifically this much is available, I mean that should be looked at as a scientific prescription. Why have a rider on that is something to be really looked at. So this is one thing which I have highlighted as that will certainly almost double our production from our forest areas. Then, as I mentioned, it's the farmer who should get benefited in the entire exercise. But unfortunately, that is not the scenario. Today, it is the middleman who is the biggest beneficiary of the production that is happening. So therefore, here I think one solution could be information technology. Can we provide digital platforms to farmers so that they are in direct contact with the purchasers? So we need to work on that. I think now that opportunity is with me as the additional PCC of IT. So I am keen to work on that too in Maharashtra. Then constant sharing of market price information to farmers to build awareness among them about the current market prices of teak, I think is again equally very important. Shared by many other speakers also spoke on that. Of course, the next point is very, very important. Are we prepared to apply the principles of ease of doing business for wood-based industries in the country? I think this is a question which needs to be addressed in a very, very systematic and earnest manner. I mean, unless we do this, then how can we allow a industry to prosper? So this is, I mean, a very serious thought needs to be given on this particular aspect. Of course, I know IWST is already working on this. Wood is good concept, but it needs, I think, more vigorous involvement of the media, because I think wood probably is selling more as an emotional entity, but not as a, I mean, not on the scientific terms. people probably associate wood more emotionally, I feel, and not scientifically. So I think, can we change this scenario by giving a much more vigorous push to the concept of wood is good? I think that would change the entire scenario of how we look at it. I think the whole gamut of this thing is that farmers should be at the center stage, and more benefits should flow to the farmer. And I think the opportunities will automatically emerge. And the imports can certainly be reduced to a great extent if we can promote this concept more vigorously. Efforts are being made, but a lot more needs to be done. So this is from my side, and thanks to IWST for giving me this opportunity and be part of this webinar. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Kalyan Kumar, for sharing your thought-provoking insights and prospects on status of Maharashtra in augmenting teak timber. Yeah, it's my privilege now to invite Mr. Rajesh Kallaje, CCF representing Chhattisgarh Forest Department, to share his views on efforts by Chhattisgarh in augmenting teak timber. Over to you, Mr. Rajesh.
Thank you, sir. Just give me a moment. Is it visible now?
No, not yet. Yeah, I mean, I think your desktop is visible, rather, not the slides. No? Not yet.
Showing
yeah, Mr. Rajesh, it seems that you have been logged in twice in two different. Is it okay if you can log out and then join in? It will be easier for you to.
Okay, fine. Now?
No, still your slides are not visible. Only your desktop. I think you have shared your desktop rather than the screen or your PPT, Mr. Rajesh. Can you just relook into it?
Yeah.
Maybe you can unshare and again share it. That would facilitate a quicker way. Yeah, you can stop sharing, sir, and then come back again, share it once you click your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, I'll try again now.
Yeah, you are already, I mean, you are visible. I think now we have to share again. Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, no. I think again it's going back to the. I think there is some issue.
Even now? Showing that it's being shared. Okay. I'll try once.
You have to share the screen, Mr. Rajesh.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to share the slide, perhaps.
Now?
Now it's, yeah, you're right. It's visible now. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over to you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rajesh.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry for the slide delay. I'm going to give a very brief presentation on augmenting teak timber in India, way forward. Chhattisgarh has been traditionally managing its forest areas through silvicultural systems, whereas timber production is not the main intention. We harvest, but it's only silviculturally. Only the corporations manage the plantations commercially in Chhattisgarh. Corporations mainly have teak plantations. If you look at the timber production in Chhattisgarh over the years after the state was formed, you can see that from about 1.5 lakh cubic meter per annum, we have come down to about roughly 70, 80,000, 1 lakh cubic meter per annum. If you look into the production of teak timber every year, it has ranged in the in say about 3 to 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 cubic meters per year, which is quite low. If you look into the timber production in Chhattisgarh Forest Development Corporation, after the state was formed, here also you can see that from about 70 to 80,000 cubic meter per year, it has now come down to 20, 30,000 cubic meter per year. It's mainly teak. There are some other species, also miscellaneous species, but it's mainly teak. So if you compare the area of Forest Development Corporation and Forest Department, the production of teak timber by the corporation is only from a very small area of 1250 square kilometers. Whereas the total production of timber is 25 to 35% of the total timber production of the Forest Department. I feel the major reason for this is the corporations are much more commercially managed. If you look into the timber market in Chhattisgarh, just like previous eminent speakers have told, the teak is in short supply. For Chhattisgarh businessmen and timber merchants, they prefer to get it from Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and they import mainly from Africa. But the major question is how to increase the teak production. If you look at the current level of production, the percentage of teak is only 2 to 8% of the total timber production in Chhattisgarh. With a forest cover of about 44%, we don't have much scope for new block plantations of teak, and it is not advisable also. But over the years, for the past say 50, 60 years, in almost all central Indian states, there have been teak plantations from 1950s, 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s. There have been huge plantations of teak in all these states, and we need to resurvey the existing plantations which are under the Forest Department, and we have to prepare a plan for commercial management. Many forest divisions have very old teak plantations of varying quality, which have immense potential. I have given the example of only 4 divisions here. It's only indicative, not exhaustive. See, 4 divisions have about 200 sites of old teak plantations covering an area of 9,100 hectares. So if you take the whole state, it will be in 20, 30,000 hectares of pure teak plantations. So we have to identify all these block plantations in the forest department areas, and also consider other plantations which have more than 50% of teak in them, make a database on age and growing stock of the plantations, and hand them over to the corporation as they are. What we are trying now at present, like Rekha ma'am told in the morning, we are trying to get this superior quality tissue culture teak plants from AFGTP. We already ordered this year, and we have started plantation in forest area in about 40 hectares to begin with, because for the first time we are using tissue culture plants in the forest areas. And also we are trying to manage the SSOs and CSOs better, regular collection of superior quality seeds and raising and felling in nurseries. And IFGTP has contributed immensely for agroforestry in Chhattisgarh. I have known personally some progressive farmers who are using the teak seedlings. We are going to expand that program and add more and more farmers in the coming years to increase the teak production in Chhattisgarh. This is in brief about what's happening in Chhattisgarh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajesh Kalaje, for your quick but substantial, with some substantial valuable information and sharing thoughts on augmenting teak timber, especially with reference to Chhattisgarh. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
May I now have the privilege of calling upon Mr. O.P. Singh, APCC of Orissa Forest Department, to share his thoughts on prospects of augmenting teak timber, especially by Orissa Forest Department. Over to you, Singh, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. And first of all, namaskar to Tasneem Ahmed sir and my colleagues Madan Prasad and Bivas Ranjan, if he's still there. I have decided to share my presentation in 3 parts. The main write-up has already been emailed, and I think the highlights of the presentation I will just share with you.
Malkhede is also here. You have to acknowledge him also.
Oh, acha, I didn't know. So, to Malkhede also, a very good afternoon. So, teak is king of timber. and because of its royal status, that is its blessing, and that is the cause of its ruin also. More elaborate discussion I will make it later on. So my presentation, the first part is what we have in Odisha in terms of teak resources. In the second portion, I will be dealing with what are the difficulties in managing these resources. In the third part, the way forward, what is to be done. So coming back to the first one, what sort of teak resources we have. I just tell the main points. We have teak plantations in 10 districts of Odisha. There are 30 districts, so in 10 districts we have teak plantations covering an area of 15,700 hectares. And out of these, 40 to 60 years teak plantations, the number of trees is about 28.80 lakh. This is the number of trees aging 40 to 60 years. And more than 60 years, we have 45,000 teak trees. Besides, in terms of silvicultural wing works, we have seed production area of 135 hectare. Clonal seed orchard, we have 44.41 hectare. And clonal multiplication garden, we have 6.98 hectares. We have 17 teak preservation plots, basically in situ conservation plots, and 150 number of teak trees. So this is what we have essentially with our silvicultural wing, and the teak plantations are in territorial wings. So this is the teak resource of Odisha. Now coming to the second point, the difficulties. I think this needs more elaborate discussion. And as I said in the beginning, the very royal status and the very high price of teak, not only in India but all over the world, is the main cause of its ruin. It is a blessing and it is a bane for teak. Because of that reason only, protecting the mature teak trees is the biggest challenge to us, and I'm sure it is the biggest challenge in all other states also. We may talk of many scientific studies, but all those studies have a notion that there is no biotic interference and there is no illicit felling. But the reality is well known to all the forest officers, so that must not be ignored. So that is one of the top difficulties, protecting our mature teak trees. Second is on the part of people, private people especially, there is a big reluctance to go for teak plantations. And the reluctance originates because of difficulties in transporting teak, harvesting teak, and then sawing teak, both. I mean, all the three things: raising, harvesting, and transporting and sawing. So this is another very big problem. Because there is difficulty, so people do not come forward for teak plantations. Third is the rotation period. The rotation period of teak is also very high, and especially in comparison to acacia, chakunda, eucalyptus, which have been taken up by the farmers on a very large scale. They are happy because they are getting the returns within say 6 to 8 years, and they are getting good returns. But in case of teak, the rotation period being high, that is one of the reasons they do not wait or they cannot wait for so long, and that's why they are reluctant. Now, the next point I have noted is one of the difficulties, lack of good planting stock. The department is doing a lot of plantation. We have done earlier also, but the good planting stock is not there. And that is one of the reasons why the productivity of our forest, especially teak, is not very high. And reasons also I can say with my experience, the time I have spent in Odisha Forest Department and a very brief visit to IFGTB Coimbatore. There I saw what is quality planting material, what is the best way to collect seeds, and what exactly is quality seed. And after that visit, I realized that whatever we have been doing in the state is just for the namesake. We call it QPM, but it is not QPM. So that is one of the difficulties. And why we have reached such stage? Because there are basically 2-3 things. One is lack of funds to be spent in the field of silviculture practices. The silvicultural wing doesn't get that much fund. That is a harsh reality. Second is the vacancy level in silvicultural wings, because this wing, unless it is really strengthened in terms of manpower, in terms of funds, the silviculture wing can't do much. But that is the reality. We have a lot of vacancies. We do not have the right manpower. The people who are willing, the people who are capable, and who can deliver in silvicultural fields. So they are not there. That is another reason. And of course, right in the beginning also, but I have to highlight once again, high level of biotic pressure on our teak plantations or whatever forest we have. And that is again linked to a very, very low level of per capita income in our country. As long as we have very poor people, as long as we have low level of employment, we cannot expect that our teak plantations or forests or any natural resources can be protected and utilized legally for the nation. So unless and until we raise our per capita income, and mind you, Forest Department is not the only department who is responsible for raising the per capita income. There are various departments who are supposed to do those things. Can't expect Forest Department to raise the per capita income. We have limited resources, limited field of work, and limited manpower. But the fact is that unless and until we grow up in terms of our economic level, unless we move up from this primitive economy to secondary and tertiary economy, will remain poor, and our people will remain dependent on the forest. They will keep cutting the forests, and especially the high value teak species or maybe red sanders or similar species. So that reality should not be ignored. The fact is that we are a poor country, and if we want to protect our resources, we have to ensure that people do not depend on the forest, and especially teak, red sanders, sisu, and so many other valuable species. So that is one of the challenges, and that is a harsh reality, and that is the biggest difficulty why we are unable to protect our forest resources. Forget teak, any forest species, if it is valuable, it is likely to be illicitly removed. And not only timber, it may be any MFP item, it may be anything which is valuable. Then, I mean, after speaking so much about the difficulties, I would come to the last part. What is the way forward? In recent months, we have done something. First was that in view of the Government of India guidelines 2016 and 17 for wood-based industries. So we have done two things. First is that we are going to revise, in fact, it is in process. We are going to revise our Sawmill and Sawpits Act rules, etc. And then wood-based industries, how to ensure that many more industries do come in the state of Odisha. For that also, we are moving. We have prepared something, and we have made one strategy also. And one of the strategies is that our focus would be tree outside forest. We will try to see that the people, they grow many species which can be harvested at a shorter rotation, and they would be tempted to utilize the sawmills. And then when there is demand for sawmills, naturally there are many sawmillers also. They are waiting for us, I mean, the order so that they can set up the sawmills. So these two things, tree outside forest for the farmers, and how we can increase the number of sawmills, and then the rules, sawmill sawpit rules. So these 2-3 things we are undertaking, and maybe within 2-3 months we'll finalize, and hopefully we'll get it approved also. Ease of growing teak, harvesting teak, or sawing and transporting teak, this should be our key focus, and only on these items we will be focusing. Other than that, coming to silvicultural aspects, we would go for, rather we are in the process of finalizing, because so far we did not have any harvesting of teak plantations. Right in the beginning, I have told that we are having more than 60 years teak trees. The number is 45,000, and 40 to 60 years teak, the number is about 29 lakh. So for those very old or mature trees, we are in the process of formulating one harvesting scheme. Our Forest Corporation has submitted a proposal, and as per that proposal, wherever the trees are more than 60 years, we are likely to identify, about 80% of the trees. We'll retain 20% and we'll try to harvest 80% of the trees. This is the proposal. It is not yet finalized. And similarly, for 40 to 60 years trees, again, we'll retain more. About 80% will retain and 20% will be harvested. So this is what we propose to do for our teak plantations. And the total number will be, say, more than 29 lakh trees. So we have to get a lot of teak timber from those harvesting teak plantations. Once it is finalized and approved by the government, it is still under the process, but that is what we propose to do. And then on silvicultural front, this thinning, soil moisture conservation measures, and quality planting material, these things are there. But these are only objectives. Unless and until we get the right amount of funds and the right type of manpower, these will remain just a daydream type of thing. Because for the past so many years, I have seen there is no thinning. Whatever thinning takes place, it is by the timber smugglers. Silvicultural operations are few and far between. So we must see, as a forest administrator, what is the field reality, and accordingly we should combine with the scientific reports. Scientific reports are in isolation, and the forest officers, they see the field reality. So I think both the things should be combined, and then only we'll reach a good decision. I think this is all what I just wanted to share. And the main presentation is anyway emailed. If you want, we can substantiate with more details. So it is for Madan Prasad to take a call. Otherwise, there's that much only. Thank you very much.
You have covered everything from your presentation in your overview. So, but why you did not show your presentation? That was, I thought you will show the presentation. Okay, no issue. So
No. I was not prepared because there are some other issues.
Okay, no issue. Okay, so we will expect a detailed write-up based on your presentation and whatever overview you have given.
Yes.
Okay, and then Tasneem sir will interact to you later after the presentation from Malkhere from the Karnataka.
Definitely, most welcome.
Some questions to you later on. Okay.
So thank you very much, Mr. O.P. Singh, sir, for sharing your knowledgeable views in augmenting teak timber, especially with reference to Orissa Forest Department. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Now I have the privilege of calling upon Mr. Subhash Malkhed, sir, PCF, Karnataka Forest Department, to share his views and perspectives of Karnataka in augmenting teak timber. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir. Thank you, Sneha sir, my academic guru, and also Deepak Sharma sahab, who is also there but not seen here. This is our field guru. And one word for Tasneem Ahmed sir before I start presentation. Sir, while your professionals are getting older and older, you are getting younger and younger. I think इस बार आपको जवां कैसे रहे इसके बारे में भी बताना पड़ेगा.
ये सब नकली है. बता दिया मैंने.
Please share the presentation. Thank you, Dr. MP Singh and IWST for sharing this very important topic. And I think for Karnataka, I would be giving a small presentation. Most of it, I hope Bivash and others have also joined my batchmates. If not, we can see Bivash here only. the power button. Next again. So see, this map I am showing not because of any specific purpose. As we can see that most forests, dense forests are there in Karnataka on the western side, that these are Western Ghats. And as we rise from the coastal area, we see variability of teak in different proportions. And as we reach, get up Ghat and we see the plateau part of it, we get higher density of teak. So just this green map itself, the darker green, which is evergreen forest, and above that, the greens which we see are the areas which are mostly teak predominant areas. Next. I won't go into details of origin and distribution. Most of the speakers have spoken about it. I would only go on the last point where we are talking about teak plantations. So first teak plantation was done in 1865 at Lakkolli in Chikmagalur district. Next. And distribution of teak in Karnataka, if you see, it is almost there in whole of Karnataka in different various proportions. And there are only few districts, maybe 5 or 6 districts, where we don't find teak, but the density of teak and its gregariousness is varying in all these districts. Next. As Deepak Sharma Sahab has told in yesterday's his lecture that we have 3 kinds of teak areas, 3 in moist teak bearing areas, which is very moist, moist teak forest and slightly moist. All these things are dependent on rainfall. And then we have southern moist mixed deciduous forest, which most of it we can see in Dandeli teak and Hunsur teak are part of moist teak bearing areas. And if you see why this map is important is if you see that darker line, faded green line turning into yellow, that is where we have this dry teak bearing forest, which are very dry teak and dry teak forests. They are also intermixed with southern dry mixed deciduous forest. These areas are called teak pole areas, and the earlier areas are called high forest blocks. Next. And I think all of us know about various associates. In high forest blocks, you have Xylea and Terminalia paniculata, Tomentosa, Lagestromia lanceolata, Dalbergia latifolia being another very major species. And in case of bamboo, it is Bambusa bambus. Whereas in case of drier teak areas, higher percentage of Anagosis latifolia and Delinia pentagana and Boswellia, Maduka, Buchnania, Lanzan, all these species are found in more number. And in case of bamboo, we see more of Dendrocalamus strictus bamboo. Next. Demand of teak, as we know, is increasing day by day. Despite getting all the substitutes, the best quality teak even now also fetches very high price. If you see the variability of price in last 25 years or so, it was somewhere between say 20,000 to 25,000 rupees per cubic meter, but today it is going beyond 1,20,000 per cubic meter. It is a very good material for building construction, furniture, cabinet, all these things are known. And next, Haki. Next, Haki. This is the recent last 3 years from 3 major depots of Karnataka. I have taken statistics. As we can see that even in the last 3 years, we can see a variability of something from 80,000 rupees. The average price has gone up to 1,30,000 or so. And most of the lots that are exposed for the sale are sold. Now coming to the teak plantation, this is we have in Karnataka both kinds of teak, which is naturally found teak, and as well as teak plantations are there. So Karnataka has around 1,20,000 hectares under teak plantation. This is a little rough figure. Around 40 to 45,000 hectares is part of protected areas. That is Nagarhole National Park, Dandeli Wildlife Sanctuary, even Bhadra Tiger Reserve, Bandipur. So we can see that around 30% are not now in extractable category. But when I checked up with working plans, what is the total area that is coming under teak plantation working circle, that is only around 70,000 area. And this is only 1.65% of the total forest area, which is part of teak improvement working circle in all the working plans of Karnataka. And since there has been a ban on green felling since 1983, what has happened with these plantations is that we have not been able to do regular extractions of these plantations. I will come to that in my next slide. And now the challenge with us is that how to convert these areas so that we can effectively utilize not only forest area but also also get higher productivity of teak, and teak demand is met. In the working plans, what we see as objectives of management is improve the productivity of existing teak plantations by way of silvicultural thing. This is what is written in the working plans. I am just reproducing it here. To meet the demand of timber and realize higher revenue of government, and to improve productivity of plantation areas by taking up soil and water conservation measures in erosion prone area. These are general thing, and also thinnings which are I will come to harvestable girth and rotation. See, in most of the older working plans that we have gone through, it is found that CA and MI curves, they have said that it will meet at around 80 years. However, on the conservative side, in the older working plans, the extractable age was kept between 80, 100 or 120 years. In some cases, in maximum plans which were for moist deciduous forest, that is high forest blocks, it is kept even at 120 years in most of the areas. And of course, these 4 thinning schedules which are given, which are common. First one at 8 years, which is mechanical, removing half of the crop. Second one is silvicultural thinning at 15 years to retain around another 50% to be taken out. Third thinning is prescribed at 30th year, where another 30% of crop is removed based on silvicultural practices. And fourth thinning was prescribed at the age of 50th year. Where we have to retain around 300 mature trees in plantation. Next. Now, if you see in forests of Karnataka, my question is little direct. Why is teak confused in forests? That means teak is not confused. In fact, we are all ourselves confused as to how to treat the teak. There is a policy confusion. You see, if you go around since even after independence, if we see, we have been giving confusing policies to our implementers. There has been initial policy was to give materials to industries and earn revenue. And all of a sudden we shifted it that any revenue is coming, we should go towards outside forest area, and we should not go from natural forest, and then we should start conserving. Even our 1980 Conservation Act or for National Forest Policy 1988 all give conflicting directions to implementers. Forestry being such a long field, such I should say it will take 2 or 3 generations for any policy to be implemented, and we are shifting it every decade from one place to another. So this policy confusion has created confusion for teak also. And there has been a large gap, if I say, in most of the areas of Karnataka, we did not have working plans for almost 25 years. So working of forests without working plans has created another confusion, and teak plantations which were supposed to be done with proper thinning and other operations were neglected because there were other operations that were being carried out. In Karnataka, we faced another bigger problem of conservation-based activism in 1980s, which created a big roadblock for taking up regular forestry activities in Karnataka, and that led to order on ban on green felling of 1983. This further kept on culminating into more confusion as to whether thinning can be done, whether it forms part of green filling or not. All these confusions, when they remain for a decade or two, in field the operations suffer, and this is a good time for teak plantations to get converted into other species taking over the teak plantations. And then there is a blanket ban in protected areas for any working. This has certainly had a large scale impact on teak plantations within the protected areas. I think if my personal view is taken, there is nothing wrong if a small portion of area, less than 1% of area, which will form part of a working cycle within 1 year, is taken up for thinning or other cleaning up operations from teak plantations. And teak may not be for revenue purposes, but for cleaning the forest floor, at least it should be taken up in the larger interest of wildlife too. And we all know 202/95 writ petition has also given us a lot of instructions. Now most of our working is happening based on several guidelines that have come out of this writ petition and IS to that effect. So the question that we come at the end is, for augmenting the teak demand and to stabilize the rate that teak is getting in various depots. Now we have Dandeli and Hunsur is considered to be the best teak, maybe in at least in Karnataka or in India. Dandeli teak is known for its grains as well as color. And similarly, we have a Teli variety of teak, which is also high in oil content, which has a very, very beautiful grain structure and finish. All such teak is getting such a high rate. Whether this rate is artificial or it is actual rate for the teak, and whether more teak plantations would help, or whether the existing teak plantations are to be done away with. That is the question which we have in front of us. And the way forward is, next slide. So the way forward, I would suggest in case of the existing teak plantations, is to assess the productivity of old teak plantations. Unless we assess what is the productivity, because if you see that we have areas which have very low productivity, but we have taken up teak plantations in such areas, which are towards semi-evergreen. Even we have some plantations in semi-evergreen areas also. In places like Jagalpet or Tineghat, also plantations were taken up earlier. And whether these plantations, once we assess the productivity of these areas, we need to segregate these plantations into two categories. One is productive category and another one is conservation category. The ones which are low productive will be part of conservation category, and those from which we can see a future of getting productive teak timber on sustainable basis can be part of productive category. And in case of production plantation out of these teak plantations, necessary thinning, including high grade thinning like D grade thinning, can be introduced so that we bring them on the basis of age to number basis can be, per hectare age to number basis can be brought in, and all the dead, moribund, broken, fallen down trees need to be taken, and the floor also needs to be cleaned up. I don't suggest removing any miscellaneous growth that has already come and established itself. but still they should generally give a characteristics of a pure teak plantation. And in case of conservation plantation, as Deepak Sharma Sahab had told yesterday, that we need to take it up with a practice of converting it into natural forest, as teak being one of the constituents. And in case of production plantation, again, as Deepak Sharma Sahab had told yesterday, crown thinning is one of the major things that we must take up instead of going from ground thinning. Crown thinning, which he had yesterday explained, same thing should be followed. And besides all this, I have one more suggestion, that at least this 5% of forest area of the state should be brought back in normal conventional way to teak plantations on the lines of acacia and eucalyptus, because acacia also we are clear felling now, and similarly the way it was done earlier, the area clear felled, not suggesting clear felling area with all the trees on it, but there are areas which have gaps and other where a lot of weeds are there, but they form part of production area for the teak. Such areas should be brought back with conventional methods of RAB, where slush burning was done and teak was planted. Instead of stump method, now we have seedlings which can be planted. And I won't be touching on trees outside forest, because several lectures I have heard where people have given a lot of impetus on how we can augment teak from outside the forest area. So I deliberately kept away from it in case of Karnataka, because trees outside forest itself has seen a lot of fluctuation again in last 25 years, right from so many people coming forward and offering some teak companies had come and said that they will be offering a lot of rewards after a few years, and they will get a lot of returns on their investment, but nothing of this sort has happened, and no one has given even a single paisa, and those who had put money has gone. So we keep on giving confusing signals again to farmers. Now sandal is in rage and mahogany is in rage, and what will happen to it once it comes for the harvest is a matter that is to be seen. So I'm not touching on trees outside forest, but my sincere suggestion is existing teak plantations, whatever it is, 69,000, 70,000 hectares, which are part of working plan, should necessarily be, if there is a policy guideline from Government of India, and since now National Working Plan Code is also being rewritten, and you being one of the esteemed member of that committee, I think we will be seeing some kind of a policy shift when we take off teak plantations, and a clear message is brought to the focus, because in field, in states, people are confused with too many guidelines, directions, code directions, which confuses them as to what is to be done and what is not to be done with a particular forest area. And another additional thing which I said is not to do away with completely with the teak plantations, and we should set aside as area which to my for Karnataka which would be around 20,000 hectares for taking up teak plantations in a conventional way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Malkhede, for very exhaustive way forward. It is only four points, but it has given a way forward. So I just want to have quick response from Tasneem Ahmad sir on the way forward given by Malkhede, and Deepak Sharma sir also. And I can see if, okay, yeah. Sir, unmute kar lijiye sir.
Tasneem would like to speak. I do not have
मेरे
much to
साहब
add.
ने जो भी कहा बहुत अच्छी बात है, बहुत अच्छा सोचने का तरीका है। मैं अपनी बात तो जो मुझे कहना है वो बाद में प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए 5 स्लाइड दिखाऊंगा, लेकिन जो इनके अलावा भी अब जो जैसे सिन्हा साहब थे, मैं 2-3 सवाल सोचने के लिए छोड़ रहा हूँ। बहुत जगह पे क्या हो रहा है कि कनोपी डेंसिटी पे प्रिस्क्रिप्शन वर्किंग प्लान के बेस्ड है पूरा मैनेजमेंट। मेरा ये कहना है कि सोचिए, कनोपी डेंसिटी तो बड़ा पर्सनल रहता है, चेंज होती है। मेरा अपना ख्याल ये है कि management of prescriptions of working plan must be based on growing stock, percentage of growing stock to the optimum level. Yani forest density should be in terms of growing stock. Number 1. Number 2, जो भी टी के प्लांटेशंस हुए हैं तो किसी का कहना कि फेल है। एक बात मैं आपको अर्ज करूं, प्लांटेशन का फेल होना या सक्सेसफुल होना ये ऑकुलर पे डिपेंडेंट नहीं है। देखिए, अगर हमने एक प्लांटेशन को लगाया, क्लियर फेलिंग करके लगाया, वो साइट जब हमने फेलिंग की उसने अगर करस्पॉन्ड किया है मान लीजिए साइट क्वालिटी 2 से, और जो हमारा रिजल्टेंट प्लांटेशन आया है उसकी जो 10 साल में या 15 साल में मैंने हाइट निकाली, यदि वो साइट क्वालिटी 3 को रिस्पॉन्ड कर रही है, दैट मीन्स आवर प्लांटेशन हैज फेल्ड। हमको इसको ध्यान में रख करके कि साइट का डिटोरिएशन नहीं होना चाहिए, इस एंगल से काम करना है, अपने मैनेजमेंट करना है। तो मेरा ये ख्याल है कि इसके लिए एक ऑलरेडी हमारे पास टीक इवन एजेड फॉरेस्ट को मैनेज करने के लिए हमारे पास ऑलरेडी यील्ड टेबल्स हैं। तो बजाय इसके कि 17 साल में करते हैं, 30 साल में करते हैं, 60 साल में करते हैं, पहली थिनिंग दूसरी थिनिंग, कहीं आंध्र प्रदेश में सुना कि उन्होंने बताया कि मैकेनिकल थिनिंग भी करते हैं, 15 साल तक मैकेनिकल थिनिंग कर रहे हैं। मैकेनिकल थिनिंग में तो डोमिनेंट भी चला जाएगा और सप्रेस भी चला जाएगा, ऐसे थोड़ी होता है। सवाल ये है कि अभी मैकेनिकल थिनिंग का वक्त चला गया जब बहुत ज्यादा पॉपुलेशन होती थी, प्लांट पॉपुलेशन। अभी हमको सिल्विकल्चर थिनिंग करनी है और उसके लिए हमारे पास यील्ड टेबल्स है। आई विल स्ट्रांगली रिकमेंड कि जो भी एग्जिस्टिंग प्लांटेशंस हैं उनको आज जो एज है उनकी या जो साइट क्वालिटी है उसके हिसाब से अगर वो बराबर थिन हुए होते तो उनका क्या हुआ होता और उनका कहाँ स्टैंड करते हैं, और वहां से हम उनको सक्सेस और उसके फेलियर बता सकते हैं। और दूसरी चीज ये, मालखेड़े साहब ने बताया 1983 से क्लियर ग्रीन फेलिंग बैन है। पहला काम तो ये करो कि इसको खत्म करो। ग्रीन फेलिंग बैन करना और हम उसमें कन्विंस नहीं कर पाए हम गवर्नमेंट को, आई एम सॉरी टू से, दिस आवर अटर फेल्योर। हम फॉरेस्ट ऑफिसर कहलाने के, माफ करिएगा मैं तो हार्ड वर्ड यूज कर रहा हूं, हम फॉरेस्ट ऑफिसर कहलाने के लायक के नहीं है अगर हम ग्रीन फेलिंग को बैन को उठवा न सके या जिन लोगों ने लगाया उनको हम अपने कन्विंस न कर सके फ्रॉम आवर फॉरेस्ट्री पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू। ये 2-3 बातें हमको कहनी थी और थोड़ा सा मैं आप लोगों में जोश पैदा करना चाहता हूँ, खासतौर से मालखेड़े से, ये मालखेड़े साहब हैं, हम तो रिटायर हो गए, बाकी जो यंग लोग हैं उनको थोड़ा सा मोटिवेट होकर गुस्सा चढ़ाना चाहता हूँ जिससे कि वो बढ़े और बिल्कुल हमको फॉरेस्ट्री प्रैक्टिस करनी है और सही करनी है। और जो मैक्सिमम करंट एनुअल इंक्रीमेंट हमारा सिर्फ स्किल बेटर सिल्विकल्चर टेक्निक से जो हम सीआई बढ़ा सकते हैं वो मुझे बढ़ाना है। ये पहले तय कर लो, उसके बाद सब आसान है। थैंक यू।
Good afternoon, this is Deepak Sharma. So Malkade has given a fairly exhaustive account of the teak plantations and the teak forest. I will come to the point which Tasnim raised just now regarding the green felling ban. Of course, it was banned in 1983. And yesterday we had talked about that particular geo, which we could not clarify immediately, and Tasnim was not very clear. I mean, he could not understand about the basal area concept. So actually then I got into the order, Malkade had given me a copy of the order, that वो order में ऐसा है कि वहाँ the preamble में it was mentioned that in Karnataka most of the deciduous forests are in various conditions. The basal area changing from about 1 to 2 square meters to about 25 to 30 square meters. That is the range of the forest areas. So in the context of the ban on green felling, when the next working plan is written, actually at that time the working plans had already been written around 2000, 2001. So the government order mentioned that when the next working plan will be written, the forest department working plan officers will examine the forest division and find out whether the stocking is good enough. I mean, they did not say that if it is 20 plus, it will be done, and if it is less than 20, it will not be done. In the preamble, they mentioned that the growing stock varies very drastically from 1 to 2 square meters to about 25 to 30 square meters. So there's no green, as far as green felling is concerned, there is no ban as with regard to taking up logging. So that has been made very clear. So, but then subsequently this was not implemented. Mainly because of the very conservative approach the department adopted after the government of order of 1983, this particular government order has not been given effect to. Now, as far as thinning is concerned, there is no ban on thinning. Teak trees have to be thin, and there is no ban on this, but it has not been taking place. We can see the annual reports of the department for last so many years. The number of thinning poles is about 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, which is not the case when you have about 70, 80,000 hectares of plantations. So thinning needs to be taken seriously, but more importantly, what we should do with the miscellaneous species coming up. Do you retain all the miscellaneous? And if we do not retain the miscellaneous, how many miscellaneous poles have to go? On that, we need a government this thing. But then if we go by the order of 2002, probably it should not be very difficult to take up thinning of some of the miscellaneous. Now, as regards converting the whether the teak plantation should be managed by removing all the miscellaneous is a question, I think, which I myself doubt, because if we really look at the teak plantations and if we really look at the teak forest, natural forest, in the natural forest, the proportion of teak is never more than 40%. That is in the dry deciduous forest. In the moist deciduous forest, the proportion of teak is not more than 20%. So, in fact, the British officers in the 1920s and 1930s, when they had inspected the plantations of teak, we had been taking up clear felling plantations, they had raised a lot of doubt whether a clear fell planting with so many teak is correct or not. So we'll not go into this, but probably if we try to convert our natural forest into a plantation in which teak will constitute about 40% and the remaining 60% is allowed to be natural, we might get as good productivity as we will get in a natural teak forest. After all, the natural teak forest had very big teak trees in the past. So we should look into that. Instead of making a pure monoculture of teak, we can have a teak plantation. I mean, I'm talking of converting the present teak plantations into a particular stand in which teak may constitute 30, 40%, and the remaining 60% can be miscellaneous. And that is why the concept of crown training was brought. The idea of crown training is to allow certain suppressed and dominated miscellaneous trees to come up by sacrificing certain not very promising dominance and co-dominance. So that was the concept. I mean, the idea was to ensure that the bogey of conservation is also continued, and we also attain productivity in the trees. And as regards raising of 20,000 hectares of plantation, as Malkad has suggested, it is very good. In fact, we have still been doing teak plantation. Only difference is that we are not doing pure teak plantation. Malkad himself was conservator of Canada. In Canada, in certain divisions, which are the teak divisions, teak planting is going on even now. Only difference is that that is not 2 by 2. It may be 3 by 3, and it may be in patches. So if we take the sum total of the teak plantations that have been going on, or if we take the sum total of the plantations that we can continue to do in these teak growing areas, I think we can have a very fairly good target of raising plantation even now. Not in that original clear felling and burning method, but taking up degraded areas, encroachment areas, and various areas where plantations are being taken now, even now, and teak will be the main species to be continued. Thank you.
सर अनम्यूट कर लीजिए सर.
My point was not about the retention of miscellaneous species. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about following the yield table figures, the volume which must be maintained at different ages for various qualities, that volume we must keep, we must not exceed, not bring it below that level. So maintenance according to thinning according to yield table volumes we should do. Composition may be anything, it's your choice. Axe is in your hand. You can keep 40%, 50%, 100%, 20%. This is your choice. I'm not talking of that. Do it, whatever. But to get optimum current annual increment, the volume after thinning should correspond to what is given in the yield table for that site quality and age. This is what my submission is.
Yeah. No, that is fine. But the only thing is that
that is all. I am saying nothing other than this.
But then point is that your yield table may have presumed the entire stock to be teak, and now the entire stock is not
okay,
teak.
Okay, agreed.
Yeah,
but for mixed forest you don't have any yield table or anything. हमारे पास एक टूटी लकड़ी तो है यार, बिना लकड़ी के तो नहीं, तो गिर पड़ेंगे कहीं भी. कम से कम एक लाठी टूटी हुई है वो लेके तो चलो, ये मेरा कहना है.
No, we'll go by the yield table, but we'll do it proportionately. We'll do it proportionately.
डायरेक्शन तो मिल रहा है ना, थोड़ा सा डेविएट हो जाएंगे 10% इधर 20%, हार्डली मैटर. लेकिन नॉर्थ का साउथ तो नहीं जाएंगे ना, नॉर्थ का वेस्ट तो नहीं जाएंगे ना. दैट इज व्हाट
सर आप 2-3 स्लाइड जो शेयर करना चाहते हैं शेयर करके आप अपनी बात को कंप्लीट कर दें सर, तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा.
अच्छा, मैंने वो आपको भेजा है,
दिखा दो, लगा दो
ईमेल. अगर आप वहां से शुरू कर दोगे तो अच्छा है.
हाँ, कर देते हैं.
मनोहर जी को भेजा है, मनोहर जी को.
आपकी बात कंप्लीट हो जाएगी आप जब ग्राफ दिखा देंगे.
करो ना. अच्छा,
मालखेड़ी अच्छी तरह से समझ जाएगा सर. ठीक है, तुम
आवाज आई?
हाँ, आई सर.
हाँ, तो हमने ईमेल कर दिया है मनोहर साहब को. हाँ, ठीक है, ये देखिए. देखिए जी.
हाँ, ठीक है सर, बोल.
हाँ, अब देखना इसके अंदर ये एक कर्व है. ये हम मध्य प्रदेश में भोपाल गए थे एक दफा, नेगी साहब ने हमको बुलाया था डिस्कशन के लिए. तो मैंने कहा था कि आप ही अपने यहाँ का एक डेटा हमको दे दीजिए. तो ये देखिए, इसके अंदर आप 3 चीजें देखेंगे. इनका ये नेचुरल फॉरेस्ट है. ये जो ग्रीन आप देख रहे हैं ये टीक एंड एसोसिएट्स हैं, ब्लू. और ग्रीन ये जो है ये कॉपीज, दूसरी स्पीशीज है इंक्लूडिंग कॉपीसेस. और ये टोटल ब्लैक है. और फिर ये डिजायर्ड पॉपुलेशन जो होना चाहिए एक बैलेंस्ड अनइवन एजेड फॉरेस्ट का, वो ये है लाल वाला. अब देखिए इसको, इसके अंदर आप देखिए कि ये इसके अंदर ओवर स्टॉकिंग है और लाइट डिमांडर्स यानी टीक जो है उसका रिप्रोडक्शन बंद है. नॉन टीक जो है वो शेड टॉलरेंस जो है वो आ रहे हैं, वो ग्रीन शेड से देखिए. और लाल वाले से रिप्रोडक्शन बहुत कम है. इसको जरा लिंक फाइल है उसको लिंक करिएगा जरा, यहाँ पे क्लिक कीजिए. लिंक फिगर है उसमें. इसको लिंक, इसको हाँ नहीं, उसी को लिंक है. हाँ, ये देखिए, ये बिल्कुल कहा यहाँ पे जो वॉल्यूम होना चाहिए उसका वो 77 cubic meters है. and this ought to have been the distribution. There's red, but the volume over there is 89 cubic meters and there is acute shortage in copies वगैरह ज्यादा हैं. इसका मतलब क्या हो गया कि ये फॉरेस्ट जो है it is tending towards a secondary forest than the high forest. हाई फॉरेस्ट के बदले में ये सेकेंडरी फॉरेस्ट, लो फॉरेस्ट की तरफ जा रहा है. हमको इमीडिएट स्टेप्स लेना है इसको रोकने के लिए. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड दीजिएगा जरा. इसको बैक हो जाइए, इसको बैक हो जाइए. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड देखिए. यहां पर भी ये जरीदा का है, ईस्ट मेल घाट डिवीजन. सेम थिंग यहाँ पर भी मिलेगी. दिस इज ऑल्सो ओवर स्टॉक. ये साइड क्वालिटी 2 है. और मेरा क्या कहना है कि हमको ये लाल जो लाइन है इसके हिसाब से मैनेज करना है. ये सारे रेड लाइंस के जितने ऊपर हैं वो माल हमको निकालना है, और उसको निकालने के बाद उन ट्रीज को जो स्पेस क्रिएट होगा वहां पे नया रिप्रोडक्शन हमारा आएगा. ये रिप्रोडक्शन का जो एब्सेंस है ये चालू रहेगा चाहे आप कुछ कर डालें अप टू रोटेशन, एंड ऑफ द रोटेशन. My submission is that we must try to manage our forest, achieve this red line for being a balanced uneven forest. इसको कनेक्ट करिएगा जरा उससे तो हाइपरलिंक से. यहाँ पर भी देखिए, this is also overstocking. About 9 cubic meters material per hectare must be removed from this forest. This will constitute from these middle grade classes. This gives us an idea कि हमारे सब ओवर स्टॉक फॉरेस्ट हैं. इनको हमको प्रॉपर स्टॉकिंग पे लाएंगे तभी हमको मैक्सिमम करंट एनुअल इंक्रीमेंट मिलेगा, अदरवाइज वो डेंस होते चले जाएंगे. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड लीजिएगा जरा प्लीज. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. देखिए वो तो हमने जो देखा है वो अनइवन एजेड है. ये इवन एजेड फॉरेस्ट है जो कि मस्ट बी एवरीवेयर इन ओल्ड प्लांटेशंस व्हिच हैव बीन टोटली नेग्लेक्टेड. ये 1955 का प्लांटेशन है. रीडिंग भी जो ली गई है आज से 15 वर्ष पहले की है. आप इसमें देखिए हमारा डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, ये जो यील्ड टेबल के हिसाब से हैड इट बीन प्रॉपर्ली थिन थ्रू आउट, ये हमारा लाल रेड कर्व है. इट ऑट टू हैव बीन लाइक दैट. और जो टीक प्लांटेशन हमने किया है, टीक की पॉपुलेशन आप देखिए ये ब्लू लाइन से दिख रही है, और ये जो ग्रीन है ये अदर स्पीशीज आ गई है उसके अंदर जो मिसलिनियस स्पीशीज है. एज अ रिजल्ट टोटल पॉपुलेशन इज रिफ्लेक्टेड बाय ग्रीन कर्व, ब्लैक कर्व. सी ये जो मिसलिनियस स्पीशीज आ गई है जो कि कर्नाटक में या कहीं पर भी जहां पर भी फॉरेस्ट नेग्लेक्टेड है, प्लांटेशन टीक प्लांटेशन कुछ नहीं किया गया, हर जगह यही परिस्थिति आपको मिलेगी. क्योंकि जो अदर स्पीशीज आएंगे जो ग्रीन वाली, ये ओनली बिकॉज ऑफ नेग्लेक्ट. इट इज नॉट एज अ मैटर ऑफ डिजाइन. मैं ये चाहता हूं कि हम ऐसा मैनेज करें कि शुरू से ही जितनी पॉपुलेशन हमको नॉन टिक की रखनी है हम रखिए, बट इट शुड नॉट बी बाय डिफॉल्ट. इट शुड बी बाय आवर प्रॉपर डिसीजन मेकिंग. ये स्पीशीज का इतना हम रखेंगे. Species will have to be identified. Species will have to be given priority. Teak first, then and then haldu, and then whatever species are there. Default से होना ये अच्छे मैनेजमेंट की निशानी नहीं है. नेक्स्ट दिखाइएगा जरा. इसका भी वॉल्यूम आप दिखा दें. वॉल्यूम, हाँ, उसको यहाँ पर भी वही चीज है. यहाँ पर भी आप देखिए रेड कर्व होना चाहिए था. 1965 का प्लांटेशन है, मगर मिसलिनियस स्पीशीज बहुत आ गई हैं. और जो ये वो दैट वाज 1965. नाउ पॉपुलेशन ऑफ दिस they are not at all in volume is not they are not putting up girth at all. इसको हाइपरलिंक दिखाइएगा. नहीं हो रहा. चलिए नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे चलते हैं. बिल्कुल ये लेटेस्ट है था. ये देखिए एक ये जब हमने यहाँ पे क्लियर फिलिंग शुरू की 2002 में 2001 के बाद शुरू हुई है। 2002 में पहला टी प्लांटेशन हुआ यहाँ पर आफ्टर 1987। इतने दिन ये बंद था, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के परमिशन से फिर ये शुरू हुआ। हमने यहाँ पे प्लांटेशन की और बहुत हमारी पर्सनल भी और सेंचुरी मैगजीन में भी और एनजीओ लोगों ने बहुत शिकायत भी की हमारी, मगर वो कर कुछ नहीं सकते थे। हमारी पूरी तैयारी थी कि अगर हाई कोर्ट में भी गए तो हाई कोर्ट से कन्विंस कर लेंगे और हम जीतेंगे। पूरी तैयारी करके हमने काम शुरू किया। लेकिन जब क्या हो गया, आपको बता दो थोड़ा सा इसके पीछे बैकग्राउंड। जब शुरू में 68 हेक्टेयर का प्लांटेशन है, जब शुरू में यहाँ पे प्लांटेशन हुए तो ग्रासेस बहुत आई। जब ग्रासेस आई तो हर्बीवोरा बहुत आया, और हर्बीवोरा जब आने लगा तो साथ में पीछे कार्निवोरा भी आया। ये जब वाइल्ड लाइफ के कुछ एनजीओ ने इसको देखा तो उन्होंने कहा ये तो सेंचुरी में जाना चाहिए, और अल्टीमेटली ये कंपार्टमेंट सेंचुरी में ले लिया उन्होंने। मजे की बात ये है, तो 2002 में प्लांटेशन हुआ। मैं 2013 में यहाँ मैं गया देखने के लिए, भाई चलो पुराना प्लांटेशन देखते हैं, तो सेंचुरी में गया। हालत ये थी कि कोई इस प्लांटेशन में घुस नहीं सकते थे आप, इतना ठीक हो गया है। और फिर उसके अभी हमने पिछले महीने में हम लोगों के साथ गए थे अपने यहाँ के अफसर्स को दिखाने कि थिनिंग न करने का नतीजा क्या होता है। ये थिनिंग न करने का नतीजा है। आज थिनिंग किए होते तो ये हमको मिला होता ये कर, और आज की तारीख में सब आ गए हैं और ठीक तो है अपनी जगह पे। उन्होंने तो इसका हाइपरलिंक देखिए जरा।
हाँ, थोड़ा माइक के पास रह के बोलिए, से दूर में जाने से आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
अच्छा अच्छा, इसको जरा देखिएगा, हाइपरलिंक जोड़िए, जुड़ जाएगा। आवाज आई? हाँ ये देखिए, इसको थोड़ा सा बड़ा कर दीजिए, फुल स्क्रीन अगर हो जाए। देखिए बहुत मजे की बात दिखाता हूँ आपको। ये डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन जो आप देख रहे हैं, जो रेट है, दैट इज द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ought to have been today after 20 years. This plantation is 200 and 2002. Now 20 growing seasons have passed. Now it is due for third thinning. 10th में उन्होंने पहली किया इल टेबल से, दूसरी किया करना चाहिए था 15 इयर्स में और 20 ईयर। ये इसको लेफ्ट साइड में और पीछे का था राइट साइड में, राइट साइड में ले जरा, इसके आगे रो एस के बाद। हाँ ये देखिए, बस आप देखिए कि आज की तारीख में यहाँ पर जो वॉल्यूम है, एग्जिस्टिंग वॉल्यूम, वो 117 क्यूबिक मीटर्स है, अनथिंग थ्रू आउट, नॉट एट वन टच। और होना इसका वॉल्यूम आज की तारीख में 71 क्यूबिक मीटर्स चाहिए आफ्टर थिनिंग, एंड बिफोर थिनिंग इट शुड हैव बीन 93 क्यूबिक मीटर्स। बिफोर थिनिंग इट शुड हैव बीन 93 क्यूबिक मीटर्स। बिसाइड्स दैट 3 बार थिनिंग करके 51 क्यूबिक मीटर्स ऑलरेडी हमें निकाल लेना चाहिए, और प्लस 93 यानी 144 क्यूबिक मीटर्स का वॉल्यूम यील्ड हमको मिलनी चाहिए थी अब तक। मगर दुख की बात यह है कि अभी 117 है। क्रॉप का ग्रोथ मार खा गई है, और इसका इनिशियल कोई ग्रोथ अब पकड़ ही नहीं रहा है। देयर इज नो प्रमोशन इन हायर क्लासेस। अब देखिए 91 105 में से 8 जा पाए हैं, और इसमें 8 केवल। आपने चलिएगा ना, नेक्स्ट ये देखिए, ये भी 2002 का प्लांटेशन है, ये भी साथ में हुआ, लेकिन ये सेंचुरी में नहीं गया, समहाउ ये दूर था, उन लोगों ने लिया नहीं। और उसकी भी रीडिंग सेम डे की लिया है हमने, और वहां पे लोगों ने 2 थिनिंग करी है, 2010 में भी की, सॉरी 10th ईयर में भी किया है, और 15th ईयर में भी किया है, 2011 और 2016। और आज की फिगर वहां पे ये। Now we have to do that crop between black curve and that curve will be removed in 3 weeks. And we have to match it with the red curve. See, the dominant trees are matching, dominant particularly in higher cut classes. They are matching with the yield table figures. This is what is going to give us and giving us about 6 cubic meters per hectare per year annual increment. Otherwise, जो unthinned है, उसका आधा cubic meter per hectare per year आज की तारीख में उसका current annual increment है. तो मेरा कहना है कि अच्छा current increment हमने अगर बढ़ाया, इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि हमने कार्बन सिक्वेस्ट्रेशन ज्यादा किया है. यहाँ पे कार्बन there are more efficient in carbon sequestration, this thick forest, rather than that unthinned and which has gone into PA. Only these points I wanted to bring into the notice of this house, and with one request, sir, आप हमारी बात पे विश्वास न करें. ये मैं पहली बात सबसे कहता हूँ. आप खुद 1 हेक्टेयर का पैच किसी भी ओल्ड प्लांटेशन में जो आप समझते हैं अनथिन्ड रहा है, अनअटेंडेड रहा है, 1 हेक्टेयर का प्लॉट डाल दीजिए और उसके अंदर 100% इनोवेशन कर लीजिए. वॉल्यूम टेबल आपके पास है, उसमें ग्रोइंग स्टॉक निकालिए, स्पीशीज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन निकाल लीजिए इन वेरियस क्लासेस, एंड यू विल फाइंड द सेम डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एवरी ईयर, everywhere without seeing them. I can say चाहे उड़ीसा हो, चाहे मध्य प्रदेश हो, या छत्तीसगढ़ हो, या कर्नाटक, यहाँ पे हमको सुधार की जरूरत है, ये मैं कह रहा हूँ. और इससे हम अपनी करंट इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ा सकते हैं. आपको ईल्ड बढ़ाना है टीक की, आप बढ़ाइए, मगर उसको बेटर मैनेजमेंट से, खाद दे करके बढ़ाने में कोई मजा नहीं है. बेटर मैनेजमेंट से हमको बढ़ाना है. एंड सेम थिंग इज एप्लीकेबल टू द अनइवेनेजेड आल्सो. उसको बैलेंस बनाना है with systematic removal by manipulating the growing stock at such level which will produce optimum current annual increment. Thank you very much. और सब लोग एक्सरसाइज करो. मार्केट जी आपसे मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है, मेरे लिए एक करके दो यार, तुम 1 हेक्टेयर का एक प्लांट डालो कहीं पर भी, दोनों जगह पे, मतलब एक जहाँ पे अनइवेनेजेड फॉरेस्ट, नेचुरल फॉरेस्ट हो वहां भी डालो, और एक कोई टी प्लांटेशन पुराना 20 साल 25 साल 40 साल whatever, तो कभी उसको थिनिंग विनिंग ना हुई हो, डालिए. और उसका 15 सेंटीमीटर गट क्लास में आप उसको डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कर लीजिए, और फिर देखिए कर बना के देखिए क्या आता है. वॉल्यूम भी निकाल लीजिएगा, नहीं तो वॉल्यूम टेबल मैं दे दूंगा. थैंक यू वेरी मच. और आपने मौका दिया हमको बताने का, आपकी बात रखने का. आई एम सो ग्रेटफुल. थैंक यू सो मच.
जो सर जरूर करेंगे हम कर्नाटक में.
करिए, फिर हमको बताइएगा भी, और अगर आप बुलाएंगे तो मैं खुद भी आऊंगा. बहुत मजा आएगा, मौका मिलेगा.
सर जरूर आइए, मोस्ट वेलकम सर. आप आइए. तो
वीडियो ऑफ हो गया आपका सर, आपको देखना था.
सर वीडियो ऑन कीजिए.
अरे यार कैसे हो गया भाई ये? हाँ शुरू हो गया. तो मुझे आना है, और आप पहले एक्सरसाइज करिए, आइए, मैं भी देखूंगा आपके साथ. और अपने सिंह साहब तो ही है, उनके साथ हमको 1 आध दिन रहने का, इस तरह के टेक्निकल डिस्कशंस करने में बहुत मजा आएगा. आजकल कोई, माफ करिएगा सब लोगों से मैं माफी चाहता हूँ कि टेक्निकल डिस्कशन करने के लिए कोई आजकल तैयारी नहीं होता है. ये तो बड़ा अच्छा फोरम एमपी सिंह साहब आपने दिया, और आपको कांग्रेचुलेट एक बार फिर से करता हूँ कि ये मौका आपने दिया. कम से कम इनसे बात हो. अच्छा, ये सारी डिटेल्स जो लाल रंग की किताब रखी है ना सिंह साहब के पास, उसके अंदर पूरा दिया हुआ है.
थैंक यू सर. एक बार वीडियो तो ऑन कर लीजिए सर.
हाँ यार, कैसे ऑफ हो जा रहा है यार ये?
Thank you very much, sir. Now we are in the last lecture for this webinar. It's my honor to invite Dr. E.V. Anup, Dean, College of Forestry, Kerala Agricultural University, to provide us information. I think Dr. Anup, you would have logged in twice. It's echoing. Dr. Anup, please disconnect one of your.
Yeah, I've not logged in twice.
Okay.
Is it echoing now?
No, my voice is echoing. It's okay, but then that's okay. Yeah, over to you to just to give us the efforts towards obtaining GI tag for Neelambur teak. Over to you, Dr. Anup.
Good afternoon. I know it's a late hour. Respected Director, Institute of Wood Science and Technology. Am I audible?
Sir, sorry to interrupt, sir. Sir, you will have to log out and log in again, sir. 2 sessions are active, sir.
Doctor.
Okay. I'll log out and come back.
No need. You go ahead.
Is it? Okay. Thanks for giving me this chance to speak in a very important discussion on Teak, the way forward. And I'm invited especially to talk about a topic that is very unique and perhaps the first time in the world this is being done. And I'm talking about Nilambu teak, the first ever tree species to secure the geographical information tag. My screen is visible now. My screen is visible, Dr. Arun.
Oh, your screen is not visible. Can you? You're sharing your screen. Can you? It's minimized.
Yeah, my presentation is minimized. I will just open it now. Yeah, is it? Visible now?
Yeah, it is visible.
Yeah. So here we go. This is about the GI tagging of Nilambu teak and our success story. Well, I need not tell you the importance of the international fame of Nilambu teak, because it's a name that is instantly recognized by connoisseurs teak around the world. We obtained this so-called Nilambu teakwood from both natural forests, plantations, homesteads in Nilambur and nearby areas of the Malappuram district where Nilambur is situated in Kerala and South India. And we have, the unique geographical positioning of this particular landscape, settled between found in the midst of the Nilgiris, the Salem Valley National Park, Palakkad district, which is quite dry, and then on the south by the Wayanad forest. And so this is some place which most of you would have taken a visit, because we have the oldest teak plantations in the world. It's named after Sir H.V. Connolly. Started planting along Chathaman in 1840s, and there is a hanging bridge which sometime back collapsed also. Across the Chaliyar River, you will find the remnants of the original Connolly spot. And of course, the world-renowned teak museum, the only teak museum in the world, that is also located in Nilambu. What's so special about Nilambu teak and its wood quality attributes is that, if we go to the oldest teak plantations, which is mainly about, roughly now about 150 years old, it yields large diameter logs, somewhat comparable to the Myanmarese or the Burmese teak. But what is so unique about this Nilambu teak is that it is having the typical golden yellowish brown color, although it's not scientifically correct to say golden brown. There's no color like gold in scientific parlance, but it is having that particular color or appearance that is striated with the chocolate brown streaks, which I'll come to later on what is the reason. And why Nilambur has this particular kind of figure phenomenon. Often people mistake it for grain rather. And in the museum, we have displayed the oldest samples in the Nilambur Teak Museum of the Kerala Forest Research Institute. I belong to Kerala Agricultural University, but we work together for this along with the Forest Department, the Kerala Forest Department, in securing the geographical indication tag. You also find them in the teak, Nilambu teak, sometimes also called as Malabar teak, in modern settings also. And these were what Nilambu teak was once famous for, and it is still being made, but not entirely out of Nilambu teak. The dhows or the sailboats, which are made, in fact, to be exported to the Middle East, particularly to Qatar and all. It's entirely made out of wood, and the structure is made and it is towed to the Middle East, as I mentioned, to Qatar and other richer nations where the kings or the princes buy them, and then they make it into luxury boats for their own purposes, their family purposes. And internationally, it's reputed mainly for yacht manufacture in Europe And also in the Phantom edition of the Rolls-Royce, the teak decking is made from the teak obtained from Nilambur. And of course, old growth teak only, because you can't find quality that matches the well-known renowned quality nowadays, because the harvest age has been reduced drastically. But you find them in the natural forest, then again you can't fell it. But you also have the homesteads which grow that, which are very nearby to this famous river, which is called Chalia. And about GI, all of you probably know it's actually part of the IPR regime. And the name, the important thing about GI, because if somebody wants to take GI for another kind of teak or another species of say sandal, Marayur sandal, or something like that, it's always the most important thing that the GI registry in Southeast Asia, located in Chennai, they are looking forward is the term uniqueness. What is so unique about it? And you always associate GI with the geographical position or the origin, the place of origin and quality that makes it so reputable. So it's it's a mechanism that is instituted, as I mentioned, by the WPO to prevent unfair competition in trade, where the public, actually the stakeholder are the public in that particular geographical area, that we have to aptly describe using a map. Initial clues on why Nilambur teak stands out among compared to the rest of the teak across the world is that there was a study by Balasundaram of KFRI where using AFLB markers, they found that there is a separate genetic identity for the south for the Nilambur teak in the southern Western Ghat population, especially the natural teak populations, and that matches with its popularly known phenotypic identity and good quality. And there was another study by Srikanth which also tells you that the population stands out. Nilambur Reserve Forest, in this case, stands out. A comparison, as you can see here, this is Nilambur teak. It's displayed in that museum, the teak museum, and the coloration and the size also is, it's different. It's not so huge, not so small, compared to same age group from different parts of the country as well as from different parts of the world. Now you can see close to 44 countries are growing teak in the world. It's the most traded timber in the world. And most of the teak industry in the world is India facing, and particularly in India, it is Kerala facing, because we have fascination for teak. And you see several shades or colors of teak from different parts of the world. Home garden teak is different here in Nilambur compared to the plantation grown and the natural teak. So there's a lot of variation in the coloration, the properties, wood properties, strength, etc., etc. I've listed a few case studies here just to tell you why we should have, once we go for securing a GI tag, we have to both look at it, its fame, reputation, and uniqueness, and also we have to also have documentation to support that it is renowned already, it has a reputation through survey of literature starting from centuries back. I'll show you some of the examples later, but we should also have some scientific backing for telling you why this is unique. This particular teak is unique, Nilambur teak. One important study is by Eric Chair, where they found a lot of silica content that is impacting its appearance. Of course, a lot of amount of silica will cause problems in sowing also. But I mentioned earlier that the golden yellow color coupled with the chocolate brown markings makes it very unique for the annual rings to stand out, and that gives it a peculiar, unique appearance for the hardwood of teak in Nilambur. That was by Eric Chair. Then you also have to look at the renowned great wood scientist. I'm also a wood scientist who had studied the Nilambur teak and compared with the rest of the teak from other regions. They found that that's number 3, higher values of static bending and longitudinal compressive stresses for Malabar province, which we now call as Nilambur province. Then there are studies by others as well, and also from our department, our university, where we studied the effect of growth rate and wood quality of teak grown under different slight quality conditions. I'll touch upon a few findings of that. We collected samples of same age from across different locations within India. In India, it was Nellambur, Koni, Rani, Malayatur, Vadavur. Then Vadavur is actually in Tamil Nadu. It's a very wet area. I mean, canal bank irrigated plantations they were. Then from Betul, then from around the globe, like from Myanmar, Thailand, Ghana, Benin, Cameroon, Sudan, Tanzania, Trinidad, and Tobago. So that shows the extent of the large areas or tracts that teak is now being grown across the world, primarily in the tropical regions. So these are the samples we collected. As you can see on the left side, it is all from India, mainly from Kerala. We can even go for geographical indication tagging of Koni teak or Malabar teak if they are found to be unique and you have all the historical importance and documents to prove it. Because it's a case that we have to present before the registry, the GI registry, then wait for it will be put in the public domain before getting the final approval and getting the GI certification tag for a particular number of years. The right side shows the population from abroad. Myanmar, Thailand, they are naturally grown in these countries, but whereas in the rest of the countries, they are, grown in plantations, but they are grown on a very fast rate. That's why we try to compare the rate of growth, impact of rate of growth on ring width. Say anything above 5 is not so good because they're wider rings in millimeters. If you have shorter rings or you have a larger number of rings within a given centimeter or millimeter, that shows they are very closely packed. The rings are very closely packed, and you're sure you will get very good quality appearance or figure, the so-called figure or attractive lines on the longitudinal side. So Nellambur somewhere stood in between. It was 5 for our measurements. We also looked at the wood physical, biochemical, and anatomical properties to see whether there is any particular extractive content that close to about 40 extractive contents are there in teak, which gives it unique aroma, unique durability, the high durability for slow grown teak. So that's how we carried out study. And density wise, it's enough you have something like 0.65 12% moisture content for the dry specific gravity, which we found for Nellambur populations too. We did studies on 3 types of specific gravity, both green, air dry, and oven dry, and Nellambur was found to have moderate values, which is okay because it's not we're not going for strength as such. But one thing we found out was that the coefficient of anisotropy, which tells you the how bad a wood will behave due to shrinkage or swelling. You compare the shrinkage in the tangential direction and divide that with the or it's a ratio between tangential shrinkage with the radial shrinkage, and those values were low for Nellambur population or Nellambur teak compared to the rest. So that is good in terms of usage. You find little amount of undesirable swelling and shrinkage. Now. We also compared the Kaveri bank, canal bank irrigated teak. You find large samples. They're actually roughly about 8 years or so they harvested it. But compare the same with Nellambur teak that was harvested at an age of 50. They're still younger, and these are very large. But you find when you take the samples using a microtome and look at its the density of the vessels, they are compared to Kaveri. I'm sorry that I put it in the right side. Kaveri bank, you have got larger vessels, lesser number of vessels per unit area, compared to Nellambur teak, which has got shorter, narrower vessels and has got a high intensity or density of the vessels. So that makes it more dense compared to faster grown Kaveri river bank plantations in Tamil Nadu. So we found that parameters like specific gravity, resistance to deformation, hardwood color, and total extractive content to be superior for Nellambur teak compared to the rest of the population we studied. The uniqueness is could be due to the presence of the river Chalya.
Yeah,
because,
Anup, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Please conclude now. Okay. Bring an
Yeah.
overview only.
Okay. I'm coming to the. We had two thesis works which went on to try to prove why this is scientifically valid, that you got very good tea quality for Nilambur tea qualify for the GI tag. We had to have lots of workshops on this, starting with the workshop in the college itself, then Nilambur, then back to the university, then we had to finally submit the application to GI registry, date of filing, and we had got the certificate on in 30/12/2017, and it's valid up to 17/10/2026. And so this was how we were successful in
The
the
cost of
journey
the
to get
certificate?
it. Pardon me?
How much it cost you to get the certificate?
So we have a IPR cell in KU. It is not very expensive. In fact, the funding is mainly done by who is getting the certificate. I'm showing you the Teak Heritage Society. So it's not costing too much. Only if you are employing a legal support for that. We don't employ legal support because we have the IPR cell itself, but it will be running into a few thousand rupees only for filing the application and getting. But the main important thing is documentation, and this is a certificate and also the logo for Nilambur Teak. So and also this map shows where we have where we find Nilambur Teak. This has exact geographical boundaries, but you may disagree with if you find something just outside whether it is Nilambur Teak itself. So that is something questionable. It always arises with all products that are GI tagged. And then we had support from KFRA and as well as the Department of Forest and Wildlife. And it is called Nilambur Teak, falling in class 31 under the GI. This is the logo I already mentioned. The factors that contributed is that there is high amount of silica compared to the high amount of SiO2 to R2O3 ratio, and deep alluvial soil. The teak prefers the alluvial soil, high content of calcium and magnesium, and a good amount of moisture, sandy loam texture for the soil, etc. And the documentations to support, starting from Malabar Manual of Billion Log, and then Indian Forestry through ages, which actually tells you why Nilambur teak is so important. And then the cultural heritage of Kerala by Sridhara Menon mentioned about efforts of British to improve. And then 100 years of Indian forestry. Teak from Idera was sent by Matthew Duragan, was actually connected with the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. So that shows. And here is the proof of the importance that our Kerala Legislative Assembly Hall is beautifully decorated. All the furnitures are made out of Nilambur teak. And there are other mentions of the historical importance, even dating back to the time of Alexander. Then what is the advantage that the stakeholders get? Because it is not given to the forest department as it is to the people there. So we have this Nilambur Teak Heritage Society. So old growth tea definitely fetches a lot of prices, as you can see in the last bullet. It was about close to 1 lakh per cubic meter for the sale of one wind fallen long rotation. Old growth teak in the Connolly's plot that fetched you such a high price. But the important thing is that people in Nilambur have gone back in planting teak, which they source from the Nilambur itself, the seeds from Nilambur itself. So if you try to if you get the GI registry, GI tag, you fetch a good market price, provided you can prove that it is from Nilambur. The teak is grown from Nilambur, and so the farmer gets benefited rather than the forest department, which definitely sells the teak average annually through the several auctions. But there is a short rotation now, so you don't get the world-renowned quality of teak. But some of the old growth teaks still will have the highest value in the world timber market. Then you have the growers in among the farmers in the homesteads of Kerala. So more amount of teak being planted in homestead, because nowadays you find more of wood coming from homesteads than from the forest. So the proportion is going higher and higher. The tier thing is there. So this is a hope that the journey has only begun for the GI tag, having secured the GI tag. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Anup, for providing us insights into the process and success of GI tagging of Nilambur teak, which would also have an impact in facilitating towards augmenting teak timber. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Anup. With this, we have finished all the lectures, all the presentations as far as technical sessions are concerned. I now request our director, Dr. MP Singh, to take over for concluding session. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So today and yesterday, we had 4 scientific presentation and 12 presentation from the states. We could get some insight into the states, but some of the states, they did not give the details, or they did not talk about the teak forest, especially Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh. And so we just request them to include those aspects in their write-up. And because when we get the details, we can recommend to the ministry to have a task force which can get into the details and suggest ways and means of augmenting teak from our forest. And we have with us some of the experts, also senior members. So I just request them to have the concluding remarks. And now it is open for everybody, or especially for the senior officers. PJ Dilip Kumar Sahab is also there. And I can see Bansal sir also. So any concluding remark they want to offer, it is open. आप भी सर शुरू कर सकते हैं तस्नीम साहब से, अनम्यूट करके सर.
एक असल में दिखाना स्लाइड रह गई थी, वो हमने फर्स्ट कांग्रेस में दिखाई थी, वो थोड़ा सा मैं दिखाना चाहता हूँ. वो लास्ट स्लाइड है, वो रह गई थी जरा, तो कैन यू शो मी? हमारा जो हमने जो आपको ईमेल भेजा है मनोहर साहब, उसमें लास्ट स्लाइड दिखाना रह गया है, वो दिखा दीजिए. शेयर ही कर लेते. देखा आपने साहब? ये जो वर्टिकल लाइंस हैं, आवाज आ रही है सिंह साहब?
सर
हाँ, ये जो वर्टिकल लाइंस दिखाया था, असल में एक बार में आ गया. वो वर्टिकल लाइंस जो है वो थिनिंग यील्ड है, या फॉर दैट मैटर कहीं भी लागू हो सकता है. वो जब नीचे आए हम उससे, तो काट के माल निकाला, देन वो 2 वर्टिकल लाइंस के बीच का जो डिस्टेंस है, दैट इज पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. फिर देखिए, एज द टाइम पासेस द वॉल्यूम इंक्रीजेस, देन अगेन वी ब्रिंग द वॉल्यूम डाउन, then again it increases, then we again bring the volume down, then again increases, and so on. Ultimately, what happens, we will find that we maintain the overall stocking at the level shown by the green curve. Otherwise, after obtaining so many yields, we are still having that stocking shown by the green curve. Otherwise, had we done nothing, as has happened in many plantations and elsewhere, and in the PAs where we are doing nothing, it is like this red dotted curve. So by not doing thinnings or working forest, we have deprived our society from the wood labor from employment, as well as our owner, the master, the government, from its rightful ethical revenue, which it ought to have had, being a rightful owner of the forest. Thank you. This is what I wanted to conclude. Time रह गया था. Thank you.
सर आपने जो बताया है, अब ये देखना है कि स्टेट्स में किस तरह से ये टीक फॉरेस्ट में इम्प्लीमेंट हो रहा है।
बिल्कुल सही।
ये एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है। तो मुझे लगता है कि we will get all the write up from the states and try to summarize it and have a detailed task force which can go into the, we can have a small task force which can go into the details of all the states and the forest divisions having teak and how it is being managed. तो इस तरह की स्टडी अगर इंडिया लेवल पर होगी तो हम लोग को पता चलेगा कि हम लोगों ने कितना नुकसान किया है,
क्या बात है।
आगे हम क्या कर सकते हैं और उसी से हमारा कितना टीक का ऑगमेंटेशन टीक फॉरेस्ट से हो सकता है। सो ये इस बात पर हम लोग गौर करेंगे सर। आज जो 2 दिन का वर्कशॉप था उसके रखने का मकसद ही यही था कि हम एक पूरा पिक्चर समझ सकें। कुछ स्टेट से थोड़ा स्केची पिक्चर आया है, बट वी विल बी रिक्वेस्टिंग देम टू गिव मोर डिटेल्स and so that we can figure out how to go about this whole issue of augmenting teak. दूसरी इशू है augmenting teak from the TOF। उस पर बहुत लोगों ने अपने विचार रखे हैं, उस पर भी हम लोग उसको भी समराइज करेंगे और वे आउट उसके लिए भी निकालेंगे। ये हमारा बहुत अच्छा रहा आप लोग के साथ साथ दो दिन हम लोगों ने गुजारा। अभी बंसल साहब से हमें अनुरोध है कि वह कुछ कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क्स देंगे।
No, thank you, Dr. Singh. No, not concluding remarks, but I'm sorry I was busy, occupied otherwise today, so I've joined towards the last part only. But what you are suggesting to collate the information of various states at the national level, and despite your request, some states have not given the information which you perhaps expected. So it will be better that if you prescribe a format into which the information can be provided. Otherwise, the collation of the information which is provided by states at the national level may be very difficult, because each state will give from his or their perspective. So whatever information you definitely require, it will be suggestive to have a suggested format into which they can provide the information. And I have no other comment except what I told yesterday. Thank you.
ओके, थैंक यू सर। हम लोग कोशिश करेंगे कि एक फॉर्मेट तस्नीम अहमद साहब के मदद से बना सकें, तो फिर हम लोग उसको आगे सर्कुलेट करेंगे। और सर और भी कोई बोलना चाह रहे हैं? दिलीप कुमार साहब अभी हैं? पीजे दिलीप कुमार साहब से अनुरोध है कि कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क्स देना चाहेंगे। So it was great honor having you with us almost whole day. सर नहीं है क्या? हाँ
मालखेड़े साहब काम करिएगा वो वाला जो बताया हमने।
जी सर, जी सर।
हाँ करना जरूर, मजा आएगा आपको। आपको खुद को बहुत मजा आएगा। आप thoroughly enjoy करेंगे काम।
आपको बुला के कराएंगे।
हम आएंगे वो दूसरी चीज है, मगर आप शुरू करें। आप खुद बहुत मजा आएगा आपको। जो करेगा उसको वो एंजॉय करेगा अपने काम को।
जी सर,
करके देखिएगा।
सर हम लोग पूरे चार्ज अप हो गए हैं सर, और उम्मीद है कि इसको आगे
करके देखिए उसको।
सर
देखिए खुद आप एंजॉय करेंगे उसको।
सर
और हम कहाँ हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, और क्या एक्सपेक्टेड था हमसे, और हमने क्या किया समाज के लिए, ये आप खुद पढ़ेंगे, खुद सीखेंगे, खुद जानेंगे अपने आप को।
सर
और वो सबसे अच्छा होता है, अपने आप को जगाने का तरीका खुद से। मेरे कहने से मत जाना। डू योरसेल्फ।
जी सर।
यू विल एंजॉय इट इंडीड।
So thank you very much, sir. We now come to the concluding, most important but concluding session of this interesting webinar. I now request Mrs. Tressa Hamilton for rendering a quick and formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Mrs. Tressa.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. We have come to the end of the two-day national webinar on augmenting teak timber in India, way forward. During this two-day sessions, we had a lot of speakers, and we are extremely thankful to all of them for presenting their views. As Director has mentioned, the scientific views as well as perspectives from each of the states. We are very much thankful to Shri KP Singh sir, who was guest of honor yesterday, and also Shri Tasneem Ahmed sir, who was the chief guest yesterday, and also for being with us today and presenting your views during every session. And we are extremely thankful for all the presenters during the technical sessions, Mr. Deepak Sharma, Dr. Gurudev Singh, Mr. Chiranjeev Chowdhury, Mr. Asim Srivastava, Mr. UD Singh, Mr. N. Satish, Dr. S. Sandeep, Mr. Subhash Malkedi, Mr. Ashok Kumar Sinha, Dr. Kurvila Thomas, Mr. Kalyan Kumar, Mr. Rajesh Kalaje, Dr. Rekha Warrior, Dr. E.V. Anup, Mr. Pramod Krishnan, Mr. O.P. Singh, and also we are extremely grateful to all the senior forest officers and also participants from the industries who have been with us during these 2 days and for giving their valuable inputs during each of the technical sessions during the deliberations. And we are also especially thankful to A.K. Bansal sir, Naval Kedia sir, C.N. Pandey sir also, who have given their inputs during these 2 days. And also I thank our director, Dr. M.P. Singh, for having organized this extremely important webinar. And also I am thankful to all those who have been instrumental in conducting this 2-day program. Thank you one and all.
Thank you to Dr. Arun Kumar and Shiva Kumar, who has been instrumental in coordinating this workshop in the virtual mode. So give a big hand to them also. Thank you, sir. Thank you for.
Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you. Keep it up. ये एनर्जी रखे रहो और बढ़ाओ.
Yes, sir.
खड़े हैं पीछे. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
एनर्जी रह नहीं सकती सर किसी में.
हैं?
आपकी एनर्जी से हम लोग घबरा जाते हैं सर.
चलो नहीं ठीक है. ओके
ओके सर. ओके थैंक यू
ओपी से मुलाकात हो गई, वो बहुत अच्छा लगा हमको.
सर हाँ.
हमारे सब पुराने लोग मिले बहुत. इट वाज अ ग्रेट प्लेजर फॉर मी फॉर दिस 2 days, नो डाउट अबाउट इट. वैसे कहाँ मुलाकात होती देखने को नहीं मिलता है यार. चलो थैंक यू सो मच.